The palatial luxury store made the impoverished Miubai look very unconfident. Compared to him, Hel Fubuki had an arrogant look on her face. She calmly fiddled with the goods, as if there was nothing worth paying attention to. Hey, look at that woman, she seems to be very rich, and went over to check on her. The person who spoke was the manager of the store, and he noticed Fubuki behavior. Out of the accumulation of experience, he called the staff to test. Okay, manager. A beautiful-looking girl quickly walked to Hel Fubuki. She greeted politely, and then started talking. Beautiful lady. What can I do for you? Hel Fubuki squinted at the other party. His arrogant expression did not change in the slightest. I've been observing for a long time, and I'm not very satisfied with what's here. If there's something worth buying, I'll buy it. As soon as this statement came out, Miubai immediately frowned and sighed in his heart that the two sisters' consumption views were exactly the same. Looking back at the sales side, she was not annoyed by Fubuki's arrogance, but was secretly happy. She is very aware of the shopping psychology of this type of person. As long as the price is high enough, the other party will buy it for no reason. Ma'am, you really know things with discerning eyes. If you are not interested in the products in this area, please move to the VIP special zone. Huh. Is there a hierarchy in your family? No, you misunderstood. We didn't deliberately engage in the concept of hierarchy, but some of the products were really precious, and we were worried that they would be damaged, so we put them in the VIP hall. The explanation of the shopping guide was very useful to Hel Fubuki, but Miubai, who was standing beside him, really had a gloomy expression on his face. Please take us there. Hel Fubuki's request officially opened the prelude to the story. Under the guidance of the shopping guide, the two of them came to the exhibition hall next door, and as they stepped in, a whole new world appeared in front of the two of them. Compared to the previous showroom, the merchandise here is exquisite. The limited style of clothing and leather bags alone is enough to make every girl sink. No wonder you can't buy these limited editions on the market, they were all swept away by you. Hel Buffalo said with a smile, his icy expression finally changed. You are right, the acquisition of channels is also one of our abilities based on the metropolis. It is no exaggeration to say that as long as it is something you are interested in, we can do everything possible to obtain it. The support from the company makes the shopping guide look confident, and her performance was also recognized by Hel Fubuki. The frosty beauty began to carefully select the goods. Unlike the previous boredom, she stopped for a few seconds before she walked to an area. This Fendi bag is very nice. Hel Fubuki fiddled with the luxury goods in his hand, and then the shopping guide on the side came up to talk. You are really discerning. This handbag is the only one, and you don't have to worry about the problem of bumping the bag. Oh, yes? And what about the price? It's very cost-effective, 150,000 can be won. 150,000. That's a good price. Hel Blow Snow said with a smile, and then immediately changed the topic, pointing directly at Miubai's heart. Brother-in-law, this handbag is very suitable for my sister. As her husband, you should buy one for her, right? The provocative words confirmed Hel Bukibuki's plan. From the very beginning, this woman just wanted to embarrass Miubai. The shopping guide standing on the side also saw the delicate relationship between them. As an ace salesman, she would not miss this opportunity. Yes sir, this handbag is very suitable for girls with temperament. If you are willing to invest in your wife, she will be happy. Wearing a high hat made it difficult for Miubai to ride a tiger. But with his current economic strength, not to mention buying that expensive handbag, even a sumptuous dinner will make him stretched. For a man, it is absolutely humiliating to be unable to take out his wallet at a critical moment. At that moment, Miubai felt an unprecedented shame, even the defeat of the battle, which cannot be compared with it. Flizzard, I didn't bring any money with me when I went out today, so I'll buy this handbag again next time. Miubai looked embarrassed, he didn't dare to look directly into the eyes of the shopping guide and Hel Fubuki. Huh? If that's the case, I can advance the money to you first. Hel Fubuki raised his head and looked down at Miubai, who had no confidence, with an extremely arrogant look. No, there is no need for such trouble. Miubai gritted his teeth, and the bulging blue veins were clearly visible. The scene became awkward, so much so that the shopping guide felt Miubai's heartache. Miss, can you help me pack this handbag? Just when Miubai didn't have the strength to buy goods, a man's voice suddenly intervened in the embarrassing situation. Moving in the direction of the voice, what appeared in front of everyone was a burly and handsome man. He is Hel Bukibuki's boyfriend and the main object of Miubai's observation of this action, Water Dragon. Hey, did you come here at this time? Seeing the sudden appearance of her boyfriend, Hell Fubuki seemed a little unhappy. She crossed her arms to her chest, expressing her dissatisfaction with a resistive movement. I'm really sorry. The company temporarily took over an order, so I delayed it for a while. Shui Long said with a laugh, and then handed the handbag worth 150,000 yuan to Hell Blow Snow. Blow Snow, don't get angry with me anymore. This handbag is a gift from me, forgive me. Shu Long's act of ingratiating himself is deeply liked by Hell Fubuki. But for Mu Bai on the side, it was a fatal blow. It may be out of a push, or a desire for self-esteem. This guy Mu Bai actually lost his mind and made an interception halfway. He grabbed the handbag and said in a warning tone, "My friend, this handbag is the first thing I liked." Really? In the face of Mu Bai's intervention, Shui Long had no intention of backing down, and the atmosphere between the two became anxious, as if a battle was inevitable. Wait, you two. Seeing that something was not right in the atmosphere, Hell Fubuki immediately intervened. Although she doesn't like Mu Bai, but the so-called Love House and Wu, if Mu Bai is hurt because of this incident, then Tornado will definitely take advantage of this. Thinking of how her sister looked when she was angry, the arrogant Hell Fubuki also showed fear. In order to avoid such a situation, she intends to peacefully evolve the scene in front of her. Shui Long, let me introduce to you. This guy is my sister's husband, that is, my brother-in-law. What? As soon as Shui Long listened to Jigoku Fubuki's introduction, his emotions calmed down. He hurriedly changed his eyes and, in a rather apologetic tone, asked Mu Bai for forgiveness. Brother-in-law, it's really a flood that has rushed into the Dragon King Temple, and the family doesn't recognize the family. It's the first time we meet, so please take care of me. Shui Long's sincere attitude, called Mu Bai, is not easy to continue to show his power. As the so-called forgiveness, if Mu Bai continues not to flatter, then the fault will become him. Haha, it's nothing, after all, you and I have just met, so don't take this matter to heart. Mu Bai put away his serious expression, and at the same time let go of the handbag. When rationality took over his mind again, Mu Bai also realized the impulse just now. If Water Dragon really gave up the handbag to himself, then even more embarrassment would follow. By the way, I suddenly remembered something. The two of you will talk slowly first, and I will go out. In order to prevent the Water Dragon from making humility, Mu Bai immediately found an excuse for himself and withdrew from the scene with the fastest speed. 10 minutes later, Hellbuki and the Water Dragon came out together, and the object held by the former was naturally the handbag that Mu Bai was very embarrassed about. Brother-in-law, are you done? Hell Fubuki saw Mu Bai's trick, and then deliberately used a mocking tone to let the other party greet him. Well, my friend has something to do temporarily, but it's just a phone call. Mu Bai explained with a smile. He didn't want to discuss this issue too much. By the way, it's my first time meeting Shui Long. As a brother, I'll arrange for the two of you to have a meal. It just happens that it's almost time for dinner. Okay. Jigoku Fubuki's refreshing response was something Mu Bai didn't expect. But today is not the same as in the past. During the period of Mu Bai's disappearance, he did not do nothing. King, as one of Mu Bai's staff, always gave him reliable support when Saitama and others were unable to help. It turned out that during the time when Mu Bai left temporarily, he borrowed 200,000 yuan from King to deal with possible future situations. With this money, Mu Bai's tone became much firmer. He swaggered forward and had the feeling of a chaebol landlord. How is this restaurant? I think it's always at the top of the list. In front of Mu Bai's fingers, there is a Zonghua building located in the center of the street. Judging from its appearance alone, it is possible to assess how exaggerated its strength is. Well, I've heard of this place, but there are so many people in line. Will it be a waste of time? Hell Fubuki responded, while the Water Dragon on the side echoed. Don't worry, I still have some methods. Mu Bai smiled and walked to the staff in charge of registration. He took out his mobile phone, and through the page switching, let the other party see a picture. Do you understand what I mean? Mu Bai began to whisper, and the other party nodded frequently after hearing it. Don't worry. Our boss has specially explained that as long as King's friends come to eat, we will give the green light all the way. Special treatment is always associated with special rights. When Mu Bai was treated differently by the store, the guy was busy looking at the couple behind him. As I said, you don't have to worry about queuing at all. The smug Mu Bai entered a state of self-satisfaction. At that moment, he felt that he was very handsome, and he felt that in terms of social attributes, he had won a game for himself. However, when Shui Long saw this guy's inner activity, he didn't give any face to him. From his inner lining, he took out a wallet, which was full and thick, meaning that it was loaded with a large amount of cash. Brother-in-law, you don't have to be so troublesome. The precious resource of interpersonal relationships is used less than once, so let me solve this problem. After all, Shulong actually took out all the cash in the bag, and then shouted to the crowd, please give me 3 positions, all friends who give way to me can get 300 yuan as a reward. As soon as this move came out, the customers lining up in front responded one after another. For food, money is more tempting. It didn't take long, maybe just a minute or so, and there was no one in front of Shui Long and the 3 of them. Brother-in-law, do you think I'm doing it right? Shui Long asked with a smile, and Hel Fubuki, who was standing aside, showed the same expression. Such humiliation made Mu Bai extremely unworthy. But because the other party's inner activities were not on the surface, he could only swallow his anger. Haha, as expected of Fubuki's boyfriend, he was so arrogant as soon as he shot. Mu Bai said a little embarrassedly, making him look no different from the clown, and at the same time, his impression of the water dragon also fell to the bottom. After some flattery, Mu Bai winked at the clerk. Fortunately, that guy was still smart. He didn't follow Hel Fubuki and the others to crowd out Mu Bai, but immediately gave positive feedback. 3. Please come and dine inside, I wish you a happy meal. The clerk said with a laugh, and then used the paging equipment to ask the staff inside to entertain. The perfect handover process allowed Mu Bai to omit a lot of awkward space, and the delicious Chinese dishes also helped him calm down a lot of resentment. Although Mu Bai felt heartache again at the time of checkout, but no matter what the result is, this bad day is finally over. Evening. The night began to be hazy, and the streets were full of ambiguous smells. After some contact, Mu Bai, who was still very sensible, decided to take the initiative to propose the idea of leaving. But just when he was about to open his mouth, the couple in front of him suddenly had a situation. Hel Fubuki's expression was a little gloomy and serious, and the water dragon next to her was full of complaints and puzzlement. Seeing the contradiction between the two, Mu Bai intends to intervene. Although there is a great possibility of becoming the victim of the two to quell their anger, it is still necessary for the task of observation. 2. I take the liberty to ask, what are you? Wasn't it okay just now? Mu Bai asked with a serious face. This is something between us, you don't need to know. Hel Fubuki began to divert the conflict, but this was the result Mu Bai had long expected. But looking at the other end of the water faucet, it gave an unexpected answer. Brother-in-law, you are also a man, you should know me? As soon as this remark came out, Mu Bai immediately spit it out. He never thought that the couple in front of him were actually arguing over that kind of thing. Cough, I know, but brother, let me advise you that everything will come naturally, and that kind of thing can't be forced. Mu Bai responded very restrained, but his heart had already blossomed with joy. But brother-in-law, I don't think I'm too much. I've known her for 3 months, so it's normal to ask that kind of thing, Shui Long said with some dissatisfaction. Well, I think you still need to ask Fubuki's opinion. If you care so much, then I think you still have some problems. Mu Bai started his micro-manipulation. The water dragon made him lose face. At this moment, how could he speak to the other side? Enough. I don't want to hear this kind of topic anymore. Let's stop here for today. Jigoku Fubuki interrupted the communication between the two, then stood up and started walking towards the outside of the store. Hey, Fubuki, wait for me. It was not the water dragon who got up immediately, but Mu Bai, the brother-in-law. As for the real boyfriend, his expression at this time has also undergone a major change. The water dragon, who used to have a sunny face, suddenly turned gloomy. Describing this guy with wrathful exasperation, it can be said that there is no disobedience. Hell blowing snow, since you are so indifferent, then I will let you remain indifferent. The water dragon whispered, and there was a red bloodlight in his eyes. Infernal blizzard with strides has no plans to wait for Mu Bai at all. She just wanted to be alone for a while, and didn't want to communicate with anyone. And Mu Bai, who was behind him, was in a very complicated mood at this time. In fact, he himself didn't want to take care of this kind of thing, but due to the constraints of his identity, he couldn't ignore it. The helpless following continued, and the passing pedestrians on the street were also misinterpreting the relationship between the two. There was even a guy with cerebral palsy who pointed at Mu Bai, saying that he had the idea of hiding toads and wanting to eat swan meat. Hey, who are you talking about? Mu Bai couldn't bear May 17th any longer, and he shouted loudly at the guy who didn't know his life or death. And at that moment, an even louder voice broke the lively neighborhood. A huge monster in the shape of a monster broke into it from nowhere. Judging from the energy emanating from the opponent, the rank of the eccentric should be at least around the dragon rank. Such a powerful intrusion, logically speaking, will be given an early warning by the detection system. Especially in the downtown area, it is more important to strengthen the detection. But at that moment, not only did the early warning system not activate for the intrusion event that had already occurred, but even the defense system that had just been installed not long ago did not trigger. Damn it. Why does a weirdo appear at this time? Mu-Bai muttered in disgust. Today was too bad for him. Unlike Mu-Bai's complaints, passers-by on the street were full of panic. They all fled, panicking like a sheep that has lost its leader. Everyone, don't run around and avoid attracting the attention of weirdos. The sound of warning that suddenly appeared was from Hell Fubuki. Although she was still angry because of the water dragon a second ago, but when people's safety was threatened, she was able to immediately enter the role of a hero. After issuing a series of warnings, Jigokubuki starts to activate her abilities. She used her mind to block the street, and then she concentrated the pedestrians who were running around. Such an effective way to deal with it surprised Mu-Bai on the side. He did not expect that Hell Fubuki, who always acted impulsive in the original novel, would be so organized at this time. After some operations, the eccentric has destroyed a large number of houses, but the pedestrians under their feet have not been affected. After all the passers-by had moved to a safe place, Jigokubuki finally set his sights on Mu-Bai. Hey, hurry up and get out of here, the opponent's strength is higher than mine, and I have no way to protect you. When Mu-Bai heard Yila, he thought that the other party was still a little ignorant. Although he is deliberately concealing his strength, he is not so weak that he is ignored. Flizzard, don't worry. Your sister has trained me. I can still deal with a freak of this level. What? This level? You are so ordinary, why are you so confident? Hell Fubuki produced a disgusted expression. She hated the kind of guy who would hold her back. She has a competitive mentality from a young age and does not allow her to be in the company of the weak. So when she listened to Mu-Bai's response, her overall evaluation of the guy fell to the bottom. Forget it. I won't talk nonsense with you anymore. After leaving here, I will contact my old sister immediately and tell her the situation here. Hell Fubuki activated her psychic power, intending to forcibly transfer Mu-Bai out. But just when the green light appeared slightly, the strange person who suddenly appeared finally locked his gaze on Fubuki. It turned out that, it's you bastard who did it, no wonder I can't see humans. The strange man scolded, and then the fire was full. He jumped up to a height of 100 meters, and in a swooping attitude, he charged towards the hell-blowing snow. The ultra-fast moving speed drove the friction of the air, the sharply rising high temperature, and even evaporated the moisture in the trees. The flowers began to wither, and Hell Fubuki's expression became more and more serious. In order to resist the monster's attack, she must give up the use of Mu-Bai's abilities. Hurry up and find a place to hide. Hell Fubuki shouted, and then used the ability on the monster. In the first moment, the speed of the monster's descent was indeed slowed down. But just when Fubuki thought her abilities were starting to work, the eccentric broke through her shackles by relying on his own body. HMPH, how could it be possible to stop this uncle's attack just because of the location? With a roar, the eccentric broke free and continued on his way. He swooped in front of Fubuki and hit Fubuki's abdomen with an extremely cunning attack. Little girls, it's still a pity to kill you like this, and I'll give you a good time after this uncle has pampered you. The eccentric showed a wretched face, and pressed Fubuki, who had nearly fainted, to the ground. The huge difference in strength was prepared by Hell Fubuki from the very beginning. But Hell Fubuki couldn't accept the humiliation by the weirdo at all. She struggled desperately, intending to escape from the opponent's clutches. But the more she resisted, the more excited the eccentric became. The bullying of the weak made the eccentric orgasm in his head. He couldn't wait to pull on Hellblow Snow's clothes to enjoy it. Hey, do you think I'm the heir? Seeing that the weirdo was about to succeed, Mu-Bai finally stood up. And the reason why he appeared so late was because of his observation of Fubuki. After confirming that the other party was really powerless to resist, Mu-Bai made a decision. He wants to obliterate that weirdo, and by the way, in front of his sister-in-law, he will earn the respect he deserves. However, before the odd man could retaliate, the ravaged Hell Fubuki was the first to scold him. She cursed Mu-Bai's self-control, saying that he was an idiot with no discernment, and a series of words like this kept coming out of Hellblow Snow's mouth. Enough, it's not your turn to speak now. Before Fubuki finished speaking, the weirdo who was riding on her body intervened. He grabbed Fubuki's head and slammed it to the ground. If Fubuki didn't use his mind power to protect him, then the disfigurement must be a foregone conclusion. How dare you resist? Seeing that his plan failed, the eccentric became a little embarrassed. He tried to attack again, but at that moment, a shadow instantly kicked him away. With a loud bang, the weirdo was shot 100 meters away. Hell Fubuki was rescued, and the key to saving her was the boyfriend who had just quarreled before. Shui Long. Why are you here? Hell Fubuki said with a troubled face, but his posture was still tall and straight. She didn't want the other party to feel pity. This was her last dignity. Fubuki. I sensed your ability. That's why I came here. Shui Long said, full of self-blame, and began to move towards Hell's Fubuki. Is your injury serious? Shui Long stroked Fubuki's face with his hand, and her boyfriend's powerful performance instantly captured Fubuki's lonely heart. Shulong. I am in hell blowing snow. Before saying anything, she wants to throw herself directly into the other's arms, but her dignity does not allow her to do that. Needless to say, I know it all, please believe me. Shui Long took the hell-blowing snow building in his arms, and his ambiguous feelings soared. If it wasn't for Mu Bai's discovery of the tricks later, what Shui Long expected would likely be realized that night. The screen rotates. The weirdo who was kicked up stood up from the waste heap, and he shook off the debris on his body, but it was extremely strange that this guy had no plans to counterattack, but wanted to leave the area. After a long period of silence, Mu Bai, the third person on the battlefield, noticed the abnormality. He took advantage of the fact that the two of Shulong were in love with each other, and quietly moved towards the strange person's flight path. After a few seconds, Mu Bai saw the figure of the strange man, and the scene of the other party leaving was also seen in his eyes. Good guy, he doesn't want to fight back, there must be something inside. Mu Bai immediately concluded that the eccentric's behavior was quite abnormal. Although he is not an encyclopedia, the long-term battle with weirdos has allowed him to grope for some rules. In order to distinguish the authenticity from the fake, Mu Bai instantly moved in front of the weirdo. He looked at each other with a smile, and he looked like he was harmless to humans and animals. Mr. Strange, are you going to run away? What? Human, are you kidding me? When facing Mu Bai, the strange person appeared extremely normal, and his domineering appearance was a textbook-like performance. No, you misunderstood, I just want to ask one thing. Mu Bai continued to ask. Huh? Don't you understand what I said? The strange man showed his fangs, and his sharp claws were even more penetrating. Please don't be so excited, I just want to confirm. What is the relationship between you and the man who kicked you just now? As soon as Mu Bai said this, the atmosphere at the scene instantly froze. The strange man's expression began to change, and the twisted face gave the answer in disguise. Looks like you found out, the weirdo said with a smile. He was not good at lying, and frankly admitted the relationship between himself and the water dragon. Sure enough, so, you and that water dragon know each other. Mu Bai responded quickly. Yes, we know each other, and he is my superior, but these things have nothing to do with you. Why? Because you're about to die at my hands and turn into feces in my stomach. The eccentric was full of anger, and his roar was accompanied by powerful energy. He wants to completely erase Bai, in order to keep that unknown secret. However, although the vision is good, the strength cannot be satisfied. Just as the monster was halfway through, Mu Bai raised his leg and kicked the opponent back to the water dragon again. The sweet couple is comforting each other, and the rise of affection makes them hot with each other. But just when the two of them fell in love, a gust of wind whistled. The powerful airflow rolled up the debris on the street, and the invisible threat interrupted the love of the couple. Be careful. Hell Fubuki pushed the water dragon away, and then used his mind as a defense. With a swoosh, the strange man who appeared before reappeared, but in terms of expression, it was very different from the original appearance. Ka. Hell Fubuki escaped the collision of the freak and let the other party fall between the buildings. When the smoke cleared, the eccentric climbed up from the ruins with the runners, breathing fragrance. F*K. I must kill that guy. The weirdo shouted scoldingly, and the water dragon not far in front of him showed a worried look. My friend, is your body strong? Just as the eccentric was about to leave again, Mu Bai suddenly appeared at the scene. While joking, he walked slowly to the front of Hell Fubuki, and then stared at the water dragon with eyes that could see through everything. It's not bad that he's Fubuki's boyfriend, he's very strong in combat. With such blatant words and deeds, Shui Long instantly understood Mu Bai's intentions. He knew that the other party must have some kind of intelligence, otherwise he would not appear in that attitude. Huh? Thank you brother-in-law for your compliment, you're pretty amazing too. Shui Long said with some embarrassment. At this time he was completely in the passive stage. In order not to be exposed in front of Hell Fubuki, he must perform according to the script designed by Shiro. Brother-in-law, you threw that weirdo back? The unknown Hell Fubuki asked in disbelief. It is worth noting that she has not seen the abnormal performance of the water dragon at this time. Yeah, didn't I tell you? Your elder sister has trained me, so a freak of this level is not my opponent at all. Mu Bai responded confidently and made a bicep display to show his strength. And just after he responded with a smile, Mu Bai suddenly had a secret communication with the other party with his mind. Blizzard, can you sense my words? Brother-in-law, do you still have this ability? Hell Fubuki was surprised again and answered in the same way. Yes, I will tell you about this kind of thing later, but now I have something very important to tell you. What's the matter? Your boyfriend has some problems. He knows that weirdo. You should pay attention to his behavior. After Mu Bai finished speaking, he immediately interrupted the communication with Hellbuki. Because he knows very well that it is usually difficult for men and women who fall in love to communicate, and only iron facts can persuade the other party to change their minds. The screen rotates. The furious eccentric pulled up the trees on the street and started throwing in the direction of Mu Bai, deliberately avoiding the water dragon in the process, so as not to accidentally injure the opponent. But his behavior made him appear very passive to Shui Long. After all, in terms of geographical location, it is obviously unreasonable that the most advanced water dragon is not attacked. Out of self-protection, Shui Long began to intervene in the attack. He suddenly jumped into the air, relying on powerful kicking skills to kick the thrown trees into two pieces. Brother-in-law, if Shui Long and that guy know each other, why would he stop each other? Seeing the outstanding performance of Shui Long, Hell Fubuki began to identify her boyfriend, but for Mu Bai, this voice can be completely blocked. Keep watching. Mu Bai responded simply, and took action. He bypassed the water dragon in front of him, jumped to the center of the battlefield, and immediately shouted, "The breath of the sun, the dragon head dances." With the activation of the breathing method, the 9 heads appeared in front of everyone as a flame dragon transformed from flames. Under the influence of the extreme heat, both the eccentric and the water dragon reacted to varying degrees. Among them, the most obvious one was the eccentric who looked directly at Bai. His body began to fester, and the bloody and tragic state even made people feel sick. And for that weirdo, what caused him the most pain was not the heavy damage on the surface of the body, but the heat that could not be resisted in the body. The eccentric cried out in pain, and the sound of lamentation was like a stray wild dog. In order to divert unbearable feeling, he took out his killer copper. Aria, Heaven's Royal Thunder. A flash of thunder appeared on the weirdo's body, and the burst of energy made the surrounding circuits collectively misfire. The street lights were eclipsed, and he became the brightest luminary. Damn, you actually made me suffer so much, and I will slowly kill you. The strange man moved in an instant, and with the help of thunder, his kinetic energy was unprecedentedly improved. But this behavior of the other party happened to be the result that Bai wanted. As soon as the opponent reached him, Mu Bai immediately switched his skills and replaced the water dragon in front of him with the movement ability of chaos magic. What do you mean? The water dragon, which was suddenly forced to move, was full of displeasure. But Mu Bai's response to him was indifferent. He just smiled and guided him with a playful look, and then the fight scene came to a standstill. The eccentric who is full of thunder and lightning is unable to start for a while. If he wants to beat Mu Bai, he must also bring the water dragon in front of him. His hesitation was instantly captured by Bai, and the water dragon beside him also noticed the abnormality. Why do you stop, you idiot? The water dragon complained a little in his heart, then raised his leg and launched an attack towards the weirdo, trying to prove it for himself. Boom. The powerful kick fell on the monster's body, but failed to achieve the result Shui Long wanted. Due to the angle and distance, the water dragon's strength cannot penetrate completely. That is to say, the eccentric was unscathed, and the attack just now was like itching to him. Brother Shuilong, your strength is not enough. Bingbai began to ridicule, and there were other meanings in his words. This is obviously unpleasant for Shui Long, and more importantly, he has confirmed the danger of Mu Bai. I can't let this guy live anymore. The water dragon communicated with another strange person using the strange person's unique communication method. And after receiving the instructions, the thunder monster was also full of fighting spirit. He swung out his palm and fanned the water dragon in front of him. The script that belonged to them was being staged in order. Water dragon. Hell Fubuki shouted and ran towards the opponent with all his might. She was afraid of any accident, but Mu Bai was speechless in such a situation, and sighed that the IQs of men and women in love are simply negative numbers. Your acting skills are really clumsy. Mu Bai looks at the strange person, and the other party has a look of disdain. This is enough for you, you should thank the water dragon for the arrangement, otherwise I will slowly torture you to death. The eccentric's emotions began to rise, and the rampant electric current also increased along with it. He wants to kill Mu Bai with one blow, so as to achieve the effect of sealing. Crazy. The eccentric shouted, followed by lightning and thunder. He jumped in front of Mu Bai, and blocked the opponent's movement with a thunderstorm with suction effect. Go to hell. A heavy punch fell, and the ground centered on Shiro began to collapse. The presentation of this picture makes the water dragon in the distance feel at ease. But in the next second after that, a picture that Shui Long did not want to believe appeared. The Weirda's arm was torn off, and Mu Bai stood proudly on the battlefield in a state of ecstasy. As I said, you are weak. Mu Bai suddenly raised his head, since the empty eyes were of the dead Wang Yang. The strange pupils made the strange person start to tremble, and the other party felt fear for the first time. What's the matter with your eyes? The strange man said tremblingly. His uncontrollable panic made him lose the courage to resist. This matter is a bit complicated, but I can show you a clear path, Mu Bai said calmly. What's the meaning? Go and expose the water dragon, or the cruelest torture awaits you. Mu Bai's words suddenly changed, and he attacked without waiting for the eccentric to respond. He first tore off the other's skull, and then pulled off the other's nails. The two extremely cruel attack methods made the eccentric cry out a heart-wrenching cry. He begged Mu Bai to stop treating him like this and said that he could expose the water dragon. After listening to the other party's demands, Mu Bai laughed and said that he still had some expectations, but he never thought that the other party would be so weak. As expected of a weirdo, I originally wanted to test it out more, Mu Bai said with a smile, then grabbed the opponent's neck and came to the side of Water Dragon and Hell Fubuki. Tell her, what is the identity of the Water Dragon? Mu Bai issued an order, but the other party did not dare to hesitate. This lady, Shulong, is a weirdo like me. His real name is not Shulong, but the adjutant of the 4 heavenly kings, called Jiaolong. What? Fubuki had an incredible look on his face, but his body had already subconsciously moved away. Seeing that the situation was no longer under control, Shui Long was no longer hiding anything. But before revealing his intentions, he still has one thing to deal with, and that is to kill the traitor. You bastard! How dare you reveal my identity? The water dragon stopped drinking, and immediately grabbed the weird man's head from Mu Bai's hands. After this battle, Fubuki completely accepted that cruel reality. She laughed out loud, and fell into a state of energy runaway. Since you guys like to play with people's feelings so much, then I'll let you feel the girl's anger. The hell-blowing snow floated into the air, and the huge energy enveloped the clouds, forming a state of vortex, and a mad thunder fell in the center. I flow, 10,000 thunder sky leads. Sadness will bring people a kind of power, and emotional play can make that power burst into a higher level. In the dark night, the mad thunder caused by the snow blowing from hell brightened the entire capital. At that moment, the power she released was almost on par with her elder sister Tornado. Damn men, with your arrogance, die for me. Hell-blowing snow shouted angrily, and immediately transformed the thunder into a giant python, and then bombarded it realistically towards the water dragon and others. As that force approached, Mu Bai realized the absolute killing intent. After some research and judgment, he resolutely chose to escape. Boom. The giant python fell to the ground, and the water dragon, which could not be avoided, ate the attack abruptly. His body was beaten into a coke suit, and his skin became dehydrated. Fubuki, so you hate me so much. Shui Long, who was seriously injured, felt the emotion behind the power. He smiled wryly, and then revealed his true form. His skin began to re-emerge, and his skeleton grew in an irreversible manner. When the brief transformation process is over, the water dragon appears in front of Mu Bai and Fubuki in the form of a monster with a dragon head. I am Jiaolong, one of the weirdo generals. Since you can force me out of this form, your strength is worthy of praise. The confident water dragon is not afraid of the hell-blowing snow in the sky, and Mu Bai, who is looking directly at him, is not in the eyes of this guy. At the end of some very self-referential remarks, this guy suddenly widened his mouth and aimed at the hellblow snow floating in the air in a 180-degree vertical state. It's a pity your ability. I originally wanted to assimilate you. Goodbye, Hellbuki. Shui Long's eyes suddenly became serious, and then blue energy accumulated in his mouth. Destroying a city on that scale is definitely not an exaggeration. Seeing that the situation was not good, Bai immediately reminded Fubuki, but Fubuki, who was already out of control, had no intention of listening to Bai's warning. Want to fight with me, over your own strength? Fubuki adopts a hard steel policy, and the choice of attributes is quite humiliating. She gave up the lightning attribute that has a suppressing effect, and instead used fire instead. The cloudy sky began to clear up, replaced by a scorching sun-like scene. Hell Fubuki relied on the energy of the runaway to forcibly transform the climate. Emperor Yan. Fubuki roared again, and immediately threw a huge fireball from his hand. The diameter of the fireball was 100 meters wide. If it really hit the ground, the entire street would turn into a sea of AA fire. This crazy woman actually wants to involve ordinary citizens. Bai has a bad heart, and he intends to intervene. But before he could take any action, the water dragon, who was opposed to Fubuki, resolved in a unique way. The water is running. The water dragon drank the same sound, and the high-pressure water flow that was enough to destroy gold and stone was gushing out from his mouth. When two abilities with completely opposite phases collide with each other, a contest to compete for strength really begins. For a time, the fire and the water devoured each other, and the grotesque and bizarre scene shocked Bai on the side. But in any case, this situation should not continue, otherwise it will be the ordinary people who will suffer in the end. Forget it. Let me stop this. Bai's heart was firm, his expression became serious, and the magic of chaos gradually emerged on his body. And just when he intended to intervene, another incredible scene appeared. At the meeting point where water and fire blended together, a pair of creatures with the appearance of skeletons suddenly appeared. When the creature appeared, everyone present, including Bai, felt a chill. What's this? It became everyone's question, and as the focus of attention, the creature with the appearance of a skeleton also showed extraordinary strength. With a wave of his left hand, there was a cold wind blowing from the north. The horror of its energy directly freezes the flames of blowing snow in the vortex of the water dragon into a solid state. Yesterday, I really have nowhere to go after stepping through the iron shoes. It took no effort to get it. I didn't expect that I would find you here, Bai. The skeleton creature's speech, called Bai, made a big difference, while the rest of the people present automatically entered the state of eating melons. Facing the grotesque words of the skeleton creature, Bai questioned it. Do I know you? Of course you can't know me, but I will never forget you, because of my birth, and you. A direct relationship. As soon as these words came out, the expressions of Fubuki and Shulong were a little subtle, and Bai, who was the party involved, became even more panicked, and said loudly, "Hey, you can eat rice indiscriminately, but you can't talk nonsense." Scare. You don't have to be so nervous, I just clarified the facts. As a creature, the skeleton monster is obviously not in line. Based on this judgment, Bai had a hint of vigilance. In order to find out the identity of the other party, Bai put down his body and questioned in a serious tone. Since you said that there is a connection between us, let's say it in detail, and don't make a fool of yourself here. After the skeleton heard it, he laughed again, but when the laughter ended, his expression also changed. Just a reminder, Legion of the Undead. Undead, Legion. Does this have anything to do with them? Wow, you still don't understand. May 17th. I am the embodiment of their resentment. The skeleton's face suddenly showed a fierce look, and Bai's astonishing answer also surprised Bai. He couldn't believe that in the world of One Punch, there was still such a magical concept, which simply went against the setting of the original book. A waste made of resentment, are you here for revenge? Yes, if I don't get rid of you, the voices of those guys will always disturb me. Alright, then let the horse come over. Bai has entered a state of preparation, and he cares more about fighting with skeletons than fighting with water dragons. At that moment, the neglected water dragon suddenly made a sound. As if his self-esteem was humiliated, he impatiently intervened in the contest between Bai and the skeleton. Hey, you guys, when I'm the heir. The water dragon slowly descended, looking down at the two in front of him with the attitude of an absolute powerhouse. Yes, you are right, you are indeed ignored. The skeleton who responded jumped up, and he rushed to the front of the water dragon, the eerie appearance of white bones. Even the water dragon was a little afraid. I need to warm up a bit before I settle the bill with that guy, and you're a good choice. Skull's maddening remarks instantly annoyed Shui Long. His eyes turned sideways, and he waved his fist with spikes without hesitation. A heavy punch fell. The skeleton that should have been afraid of the bludgeoning attack attribute, not only was not damaged, but also caused a backlash effect on the water dragon. Attribute: the choice is really good, but you ignore other possibilities. Judging by only eyes is a common problem for you creatures. After some eloquent talk, the body of the skeleton monster turned out to be flesh and blood. His growth rate was so fast that the water dragon, who also had the ability to regenerate himself, was surprised. Yugai. The water dragon's heart is not good. According to the past combat experience, the scenes that cannot be clearly defined usually mean danger. For safety reasons, the water dragon intends to disengage, but just as he moved, the skeleton monster grabbed his neck. How impolite to leave in such a hurry. Skull jokes, followed by a surprising scene. His body was merging with the water dragon, and special necrotic cells devoured every part of the other's skin. And such a disgusting fighting method is not just as simple as it looks on the surface. As an outsider, Mu Bai immediately found the crux of the problem. This guy is absorbing the ability of the water dragon, and I have to stop him. Mu Bai took action. He created a huge flame with the breath of the sun, and used the most masculine holy fire to expel those evil necrotic cells. The approach of the raging fire made both the water dragon and the skeleton feel the pressure. Although they all have extraordinary physiques, they still look extremely unbearable in front of the flames of the breath of the sun. Under the pressure of the real environment, the skeleton gave up the fusion of the water dragon. Instead, he left the battle scene at an ultra-fast movement speed. On the other hand, when the water dragon regained his freedom, he also restrained his arrogant attitude. The successive losses made him clearly realize that if he confronts the enemy in front of him with his current strength, the result can only be a dead end. Leave the green hills there, and don't be afraid that there will be no material to burn, we will have a future. The water dragon jumped up and fled into the air. In order to avoid the entanglement of Mu Bai and others, he deliberately used the rest of his strength on the skills after breaking. Great tsunami. With a bang, the water dragon tilted the energy in its mouth to the ground. With the completion of the transformation of matter, a tsunami comparable to a level 5 disaster unexpectedly rose from the ground. You too, have a good time. The water dragon escaped into Wang Yang and escaped from the battlefield under the protection of the waves. For a tsunami of this level, Mu Bai must intervene. Otherwise the affected area will expand to the center of the capital. Blowing snow. Can you build a barrier out? Mu Bai took command, and Hell Fubuki responded immediately. Although she was still bitter at this time, the latter was obviously more important than saving the people from water and fire. Barrier. Fubuki exerted his mind power, and the green fortress controlled the tsunami within the range. After Mu Bai saw this, he floated into the sky, intending to use the power of chaos magic to completely wipe out those seawater. Mu Bai thought of two ways to deal with the tsunami. One is through a large transfer, and the other is to completely drain the seawater. Compared to the latter, Mu Bai personally prefers the former option, because it can save a lot of time, but there is a major trouble in the implementation. While Mu Bai is using his transfer ability, he is unable to fight. He must devote himself to it, and this is obviously unfavorable for the existing situation. That skeleton monster must be dealt with first. Mu Bai had an idea in his mind, and then he locked his eyes on the other party. It was also at that time that the long-lost system sound suddenly appeared. According to the opponent's report, if White can defeat the opponent, then he will gain a brand new ability. But for the description of the ability, the system did not specify it directly, but asked Mu Bai to explore by himself. Extremely willful behavior, called Mu Bai began to suspect that there was something wrong with the system, but no matter what, destroying the enemy in front of him was still the top priority. Hey, since there are no outsiders, let's start. Mu Bai sent out an invitation to fight, and the other party didn't delay after hearing it. The skeleton, which reshaped the flesh, swooped in front of Mu Bai with a powerful movement. The two looked at each other, their eyes full of desire to fight. After a little observation, the skeleton launched the attack directly. Poison explosion. With a loud bang, a green poisonous mist suddenly formed on the body of the skeleton monster. It is an ability used to prevent melee combat. Once the enemy touches it accidentally, it will be infected with the most deadly. It's really despicable. Mu Bai smiled. Compared with the brute force enemies like the hungry wolf, what he hated the most was the kind of strategic enemies in front of him. However, the spit returns to spit, and the battle must go on. Since the other party didn't want Mu Bai to get close to his body, it explained that in disguise, the melee level of the skeleton itself was far less powerful than his. After grasping this important breakthrough, Mu Bai, who has always been adventurous, took a very bold idea. He first fell to the bottom of the sea, and among the submerged buildings, he found a sharp blade that he could use to swing. When the item is obtained, the breath of the sun that can burn some evil spirits in the world will also appear at the same time. The firelight penetrated the sea, and the scarlet flames were like the furnace of the sun. The breath of the sun evaporates a large area of seawater, and the air humidity increases, giving people a most intuitive feeling. This is so nonsense. The skeleton monster sighed, and since he had tried the danger of the sun's breath earlier, he tried his best to avoid a head-on conflict. But with Mu Bai's strength, how could he let the skeleton's idea succeed? Mu Bai, who is immersed in the seabed, has been secretly observing each other's actions. When he confirmed that the skeleton was a little timid, Bai quickly activated the effect of Zizai Ji Gong, which made every function of the body get a qualitative leap. Goodbye. Mu Bai teased, and immediately kicked his feet on the ground. The powerful explosive force stirred up the entire sea surface, and the breath of the sun attached to the sharp blade caused a swirling eddy current. The sea was completely stirred, and Mu Bai, who broke out of the water, rode a giant dragon made of flames, and approached the skeleton monster that wanted to escape. Why do you use this kind of power? The skeleton monster collided with Shiro, and the hot flame purifies the poisonous mist, and also caused damage to his body. As for this guy's question, Mu Bai kept silent. He must ensure that the goal is accomplished, and will never provide the enemy with the slightest possibility. People who have already died once don't need to know this anymore. Mu Bai held a sharp blade and slashed from top to bottom. The speed is so fast and the strength is so fierce that the seawater under his feet is instantly split into two pieces. As for the skeleton monster in front of him, similar results were obtained. His body began to fester, and countless roaring black souls were trying to repair his body. It's useless. Mu Bai swung the blade again, this time with the power of the god of destruction. If the breath of the sun can burn all filth, then the ability to destroy God can wipe out all existence of events. Om. A strange sound came out, and the skeleton monster stopped all activities. He is like a sculpture, standing quietly in front of Mu Bai, lifeless at all. This time, just stay with you. Mu Bai smashed the statue in front of him, and the broken body was scattered in the sea. When the battle was over, an inexplicable feeling also emerged in Mu Bai's heart. Ding. Congratulations to the host for acquiring the ability to swallow, and I look forward to your future performance. The system suddenly appeared and suddenly disappeared, and Mu Bai, who stayed on the spot, showed a happy smile on his face. The disturbance on the battlefield has been completely cleared, and the remaining tsunami control will be much easier. Mu Bai turned to stare at the sea, and the magic of chaos came into play. As time passed, a burst of light dazzled in the air, but when the light dissipated again, the turbulent seawater disappeared out of thin air. Flizzard, the crisis has been lifted, you can come down. Mu Bai's face was calm, and the idea of pretending to be a pig and eating a tiger no longer existed. Is this what my sister taught you? Hellblow Snow fell in front of Mu Bai, his voice full of wonder. No, these abilities are my own. If you are interested, I can take the time to have a good talk with you. But before that, you and I have one more thing to do. What's the matter? Your sister is here. As soon as Mu Bai finished speaking, the tornado suddenly appeared. She stared at her sister Fubuki with unattainable eyes. Mu Bai. What's going on here? Tornado asked in a commanding tone, and the majestic feeling formed a huge contrast with her petite body. Well, let Fubuki tell you about this matter, I have other things to deal with. This is the first time that Mu Bai has made such a response. As for that guy's performance, the arrogant tornado actually adopted a tacit attitude, which is quite rare. Fubuki, since that guy has escaped, it's up to you to explain. Tornado moved his gaze to Fubuki, which made the other party feel unprecedented pressure. She pondered for a while and didn't answer, because she couldn't think of a way to please the aggressive old lady. After a period of silence, the scene became slightly awkward. If it was replaced by the previous tornado, she would definitely use sarcastic language to stimulate Fubuki, but with her constant contact with Mu Bai, the tornado's heart has also undergone many changes. She sighed, and comforted Fubuki in a tone she had used before. Forget it. Emotional matters are your personal matters in the end. When looking for a man in the future, you must keep your eyes open. Tornado turned around and left the scene immediately. But Fubuki, who was left alone on the ground, burst into tears. She couldn't believe that the once mean and indifferent sister would actually say such warm words. This made her feel at ease, and also recalled the past of her childhood. The screen rotates. Mu Bai, who left the scene in a hurry, tried to chase the absconding water dragon. He had to figure out one thing, and that was why the other party approached Fubuki. This apparently calculating approach is extremely disproportionate to the eccentric's behavior. Mubai wants to find some clues about the doomsday catastrophe through interrogation. However, although this idea is good, but the water dragon has been silent. The other party knew that he was not Mubai's opponent, so he did his best in the process of moving and did not dare to slack off. Damn. That bastard is actually pretending to be a pig and eating a tiger, and that skeleton monster that suddenly appeared, sooner or later I will abolish them. The water dragon, full of anger, stopped in a suburb. He needs to make some adjustments to lay the groundwork for future revenge. But just when this guy was recuperating, the murderous intent that was suddenly revealed suddenly aroused his vigilance. The water dragon jumped in front of a huge rock and looked around in a state of extreme concentration. Come out. I've found you. Shui Long shouted loudly, but he didn't know the other party's trace at all. Haha. If you really found me, you shouldn't have shouted so loudly, right? The other party's answer made Shui Long suddenly dumbfounded. He really didn't know the location of the other party, and the momentary trance revealed his guilty conscience. As far as the current situation is concerned, the water dragon has already fallen into a huge crisis. The enemy he faced at this time would be 100 times more vicious than Mubai. Under the enormous pressure of survival, Mubai began to look nervous. He kept looking around, for fear that the terrifying enemy would launch a sneak attack. However, the direction of things has developed towards a completely different side. The enemy hidden in the corner actively revealed his body shape. With the movement of the water dragon's perspective, the ghostly hungry wolf reappeared. Who are you? Shui Long still asked alertly, but Hungry Wolf was much more indifferent. I'm a weirdo like you, but I've only been there for a short period of time. Late. Since you're a weirdo, why haven't I seen you? Didn't I say it? I've only become like this for a short period of time, to be exact. I only became this way 3 days ago. Hungry Wolf showed his signature smile, and his deep and cold eyes made Shui Long feel terrified. Since you are also a weirdo, can I treat you as an ally? Shui Long opened the confrontation between the two and made the words clear. Of course, but before that, I need to confirm whether you have this qualification. Hungry Wolf, who has always liked to be alone, does not know what the reason is, since he wants to recruit allies. However, in the selection of personnel, this guy still maintains the principle of the supremacy of the strong. If the selected target fails to pass the screening, then the fate waiting for the other party is only the word death, which can be described as extremely hardcore. Boy, if you survive my 5 moves, I will admit your strength. The Hungry Wolf moved as he wanted, and launched an attack on the stunned water dragon. Due to the weak body of the water dragon at this time, the Hungry Wolf's tricks are mostly open and close, which can be regarded as a special kind of care. After several rounds of attacks, the water dragon barely resisted all the tricks. The pain in it was self-evident when he electrocuted his bruised arm. Yes, I didn't expect you to be able to withstand it in your current state. Hungry Wolf said with satisfaction, but his praise was not worth mentioning to Water Dragon. Do you know my identity? Shui Long suddenly looked serious, and his unique dignity did not allow him to make the appearance of wagging his tail and begging for mercy. Let's talk about it. It just so happens that I also understand the weird person system. Hungry Wolf responded jokingly. I am Luo Zhang under the command of the 4 heavenly kings, and in terms of status, I am the second echelon of the eccentric group. Although your strength is very strong, but your virtue is not equal, it is difficult to achieve achievements. Shui Long's plausible argument made Hungry Wolf's expression change. He never thought that in the system of weirdos, it would also rely on the hierarchy to operate. With such knowledge, Hungry Wolf suddenly became enlightened. He showed a mad smile, and the clearly visible canine teeth made people shudder. Since your status is so high, then become my subordinate. Huh. What did you say? Shui Long's face was full of astonishment, and he even felt that there was some obstacle in understanding the Hungry Wolf in front of him. Don't you understand what I mean? My status is much higher than yours. Hungry Wolf laughed and said, Of course I understand what you mean, but this relationship only applies to the old system. The old system? Do you want to? Yes. I will become the new emperor and completely transform the power of the eccentric group. Now submit to me, and I will give you the greatest possible return. The arrogant Hungry Wolf exudes a unique charm. That indomitable attitude successfully attracted Shulong's attention. He fell into a state of contemplation and didn't say a word for a long time, and the recruiter, Hungry Wolf, was silently waiting. Finally, when the day dawned, the water dragon made his final decision. He wants to gamble on new possibilities. Well, it seems that you are not just a madman who can fight. I will assist you in the future. As soon as these words came out, it happened that the sunlight penetrated the clouds and mist, and the unique halo rays reflected on the two hungry wolves. At that moment, history seems to be sculpted by, a real uproar will be presented in the near future. The next day, the news media covered what happened last night, but Mubai, who was involved, did not appear on the screen. He put all the credit on Hell Fubuki, and there are two reasons for doing so. First, it can avoid attracting attention from the society. He wants to hide his whereabouts as much as possible, so that he can do things secretly. The second is that through this transfer of credit, I want to draw in the relationship between Tornado and Fubuki, so that the other party can feel cared for. Mubai's painstaking efforts are considered satisfactory, and as his wife, the tornadoes are all in his eyes. On the soft sofa, Tornado was snuggled in Mubai's arms, their feelings became stronger and stronger, and the word happiness seemed to be engraved on their faces. Mubai, thank you for doing so much for me, Dragonroll said delicately, without the usual arrogance. There is nothing to say thanks between you and me. You are my only one in this world. As long as you can be happy, I will also be satisfied. Mubai kissed Fubuki's hair, and he sincerely made the other person fall in love again. Yugai, you can really speak sweet words. The tornado looked up, and immediately climbed up from Mubai's arms. She stretched her slender waist, and then made a very ambiguous movement. Tornado, Mubai's face turned red, and he knew what to do. But just when this guy pushed the tornado back under him, the TV switch he accidentally touched interrupted the lingering between the two. Friends in front of the TV, the martial arts conference will officially open at 10 a.m. today. Please keep an eye on this channel. We will broadcast the entire event live. The broadcast of the TV program stopped Mubai's lust abruptly. He rolled over and jumped up, then shouted hastily, "FCK, I forgot about this." Mubai began to put on his clothes hastily, daring not to delay at all. After all, if you miss the opportunity to produce competition, then the attractive prize money will be in vain. Competition scene. Among the crowds of people, various news media were rushing to report the opening screen, just to be able to grab the attention of users in this wave of hottest topics. As the contestants, they are also eager to show. They know that they may not be able to win the championship, but they cannot miss this opportunity to sell themselves to the outside world. Friends from the news media, all contestants and guests, the first martial arts competition of the metropolis will officially begin in 10 minutes. All participants are requested to enter the arena as soon as possible, so as not to miss the most important audition stage. With the speech of a host, the atmosphere of the event suddenly became unprecedentedly high. The audience was impatient to see the results, and the players who participated in it were also gearing up for it. 10 minutes later, all parties entered the venue. As the organizer of the first martial arts conference, the Bakru Group also made great efforts in the construction of the venue. The large-scale venue, which can accommodate 10,000 people, is filled with the most advanced camera equipment, and the huge ring screen can broadcast 360 degrees without dead ends. In the center of the venue, a huge duel stage was established, and all around were various small test areas. Such a grand scale of construction can be compared with the Olympic Games, which shows how exaggerated the attention of this event will be. Dear all contestants, since there are too many people signing up, we will take the simplest test method to qualify for the competition. Please follow the instructions of the official staff, get the corresponding number representative, and then participate in the evaluation session. The host gave instructions again, and the players also followed the rules of the game. They came to an area in a concentrated manner, and under the arrangement of the staff, they lined up in a very orderly line. The mighty team was photographed into the picture. As a very important observation link, the audience outside the venue also began to comment on the contestants in the camera. However, it is worth noting that most of the guys who come to watch are not fans of traditional martial arts, but gamblers who have participated in peripheral bets. They don't care about the genre of the gamers and how strong their ability to compete is. The only thing they care about is that the players can't make them earn the rewards they want. Hey, look at that guy, he looks like a man, he shouldn't be a character to mess with. I think it's just scary looking. Look at the one next to him, with a stern look on his face, that's what a master should do. Sounds like this were heard throughout the venue. They arbitrarily judge the contestants on the screen without any basis. Until the camera suddenly stopped on a man, another group of viewers who were always paying attention to martial arts burst into high-pitched emotions. shadow execution, he actually came to sign up. Saying something different soon made the gamblers start to sway. As a pure layman, immediately grasping the intelligence of the industry is the only criterion for making bets. In order to find out the situation of the man, some gamblers began to take the approximation from the enthusiasts. As for the content, it was nothing more than an investigation of the identity. And for this kind of white question, the enthusiasts are actually very willing to answer, because it can not only satisfy their vanity, but also stimulate their conspicuousness. After some questioning, the most authoritative martial arts enthusiast introduced the identity of Shadow Killer to some gamblers. According to the information he provided, Shadow Slaughter came from a ninja village, and later was punished for taking the group's secret treasure. However, when the ninjas in the village questioned, Shadow Slaughter turned out to have learned all the contents of the secret treasure, and in the process of resisting, killed all the fellow clan partners who came to conquer. What's more worth mentioning is that both Shadowkill and Flash of Flash came from the same village, and the origins between them are also very intriguing. After some introduction by enthusiasts, gamblers began to favor the Shadowkill bet. But just as everyone was preparing to operate, the picture paused again and immediately changed the wind direction of the scene. The middle-aged man known as the Mountain Range stands in the middle of the team. His majestic and upright posture pushed the surrounding contestants aside, and he had no competitive ability at all. The presentation of such a picture made the gamblers start to sway again, but their inquiries this time did not get an immediate response from the enthusiasts. Because just when everyone shifted their attention, the screen turned again, and the man who stayed in front of everyone at this time was Crew's number 8 with the title of Uncrowned King. Oh my god, I actually invited all these monsters here. I can witness this scene with my own eyes. I really have no regrets to die. The heavyweight characters who appeared one after another made the atmosphere of the scene extremely high. Not only those martial arts enthusiasts, but also the emotions of the contestants were all mobilized. Proving to the world that one is a strong man is the ideal that every martial artist intends to pursue. And being able to personally defeat the legend in front of everyone is something that many people dream of. However, compared with these guys who are rich in ideas and beliefs, Mubai's competition purpose is much more mundane. He just wants to get the bonus payment, and then go and pay off all the arrears. Mubai. Who is Mubai? The staff of the organizer began to shout loudly, and the number 86 label in his hand was exactly the sequence corresponding to Bai. Hello. I'm Mubai. Mubai trotted all the way to the desk, and after taking the number plate, the staff gave an order. He told Mubai that due to the large number of participants, the staff will call by number in the next arrangement. Please remember Mubai's personal number, otherwise the contest will automatically exclude the contestants after 5 minutes of missing contact. After some instructions, Mubai happily left the scene. He followed the instructions of the rest of the staff and came to the main area of the audition. At this time, what was reflected on the ring screen was a huge punching force measuring machine. The structure and shape of that machine are very similar to the machines in Dragon Ball, so that Mubai has some doubts that this is a deliberate arrangement by a traveler. Ladies and gentlemen, it's an exciting time. The boxing auditions are now officially open, and anyone who hits 3,000 pounds will be eligible. The host introduced the rules, and when the numbers were announced, all the audience were stunned. Even those gamblers are very aware of one thing: the weight of the uppercut of the heavyweight champion in the world is only about 2,400 pounds. But now the martial arts conference actually uses 3,000 pounds as the entry standard, which shows how challenging the difficulty is. Player number 1, please take your place. The arrival of the notice ignited the passion of the arena. All the spectators were watching the unlucky guy, and the rest of the players were also watching secretly. In this way, player number 1 came to the center of the stage under the anger of Kuikui. When the guy faced the machine in front of him, the enormous pressure actually caused him to have an illusion. The machine has turned into a monster with claws, and the audience in the stands has also turned into a ghost. Everyone is waiting for his sentence. The purgatory-like scene is burning every inch of his skin. What? Contestant number 1 roared and punched his fist with all his might. He felt that he had used the strength of his life, but when the stats were broadcast, his consciousness collapsed. 2,200 pounds. This is actually a very good value for a martial artist. To be able to hit such a weight without warming up at all is obviously a qualification of a martial artist. However, the cruelty of reality in the formulation of the event will not recognize this result. When the value appeared, player number 1 was immediately sentenced to death penalty. It's really a pity. If I could play better, the result would definitely not be like this. The host comforted contestant number 1, but this kind of verbal encouragement has absolutely no practical significance. 0. The contestant walked off the stage extremely lonely, and the number 2 contestant who came on stage immediately followed a similar situation. Number 3, number 4, number 10. The succession of strong and unsatisfactory makes the atmosphere of the scene a little rigid. As the audience in the stands, they gradually changed their minds. They changed from the original expectation to ridicule, and even began to reverse the operation, using the difference of the players as a bargaining chip to see how much the distance from the standard line would be. The sluggish atmosphere began to spread, and the mood of the contestants became more and more bleak. And just when the organizers seemed a little embarrassed, the appearance of number 100 player instantly made the venue silent. Shadow execution. Rokuro Wubin proudly stands in the middle of the stage with his detached temperament. As a star player, his debut can be described as full of topics. It's just that before the discussion, everyone's attention is still on the results of his upcoming test. Shadow Dao, Brahma Yinmang. Goben Rokuro chanted his secret technique, and a dense black fog enveloped his fist. In fact, in terms of his own physical strength, a weight of 3,000 pounds can be easily achieved. But the reason for adopting the method of buff stacking is to test the limit of oneself. A heavy punch was thrown, and a loud bang surrounded the entire arena. The sound was so loud that it even required the audience to cover their ears. And when the sound came to an end, the numerical presentation became a stutter with the shocked host. 55,500 pounds. That's incredible. The astonishing figures are all jaw-dropping. As the second contestant to enter the audition, the strength that Rokuro Goben burst out has changed the weather vane of the event. All the crowd shouted the nickname, Shadowkill, as if the other party was the spiritual leader. This made Mu Bai, who was the first to enter the audition, a little embarrassed, but it was his wish. In fact, Mu Bai deliberately lowered his strength during the test. Just with the value of 3,012 pounds, it crossed the test requirement line. And the reason why he took such pains to hide himself was definitely not for the old routine of pretending to be a pig and eating a tiger, but just to reduce his sense of existence so as to increase the possibility of winning the championship. The screen rotates. Goben Rokuro walked off the ring to the cheers of the crowd, and he was not interested in that kind of useless worship. But it is also very strange, since this guy set such a high record, the next 10 players who participated in the competition seemed to be fighting chicken blood. The presentation of such a scene made the organizers notice the clues. They determined that the machine must have suffered damage, so when the test reached 201 players, the organizer immediately stopped the process. Anything that can happen must be repaired immediately. This is the only truth that Baruch has understood since the Bai Ling incident. He instructed professionals to arrive at the event site and conduct a comprehensive inspection and evaluation of the machine on the grounds of investigation. After some manipulation, the maintenance personnel really found an abnormality. The closed switch connected to the sensor was cracked and dislocated, resulting in a high value. The announcement of the results made the audience dumbfounded, while the contestants were walking on thin ice. The organizers will not consider investigating the guys who have been fooled before, but this is an unfair treatment for the latecomers. Out of self-interest, some contestants protested. They have transferred their own incompetence to other areas to find excuses for their failures. Why, they can pass, we're asking for a retest. Words like this abound, which makes the progress of the competition very slow. And the crowd sitting around the stands also showed a great performance of watching the fun and not taking it too seriously, stirring up the situation with the group of incompetent people. Enough. Just as everyone's emotions were inflated, a man's rough voice instantly suppressed the audience. That guy was the so-called mountain expert in physical arts. His burly body and huge aura trembled in an earthquake-like manner, affecting all the people present. Under the intervention of the mountain, everyone was as obedient as a cat, except for a few masters. The rest of the guys were waiting for his fate. It's just a test, and there will be such a funny scene. It really insults the word martial arts. Shanshan said unceremoniously, and then he took the initiative to walk to the test site. Before the host started to adjust the atmosphere, Mountain waved his fists at the pair of machines with his unique solution. Another loud bang sounded. Compared with Goben Rokuro's strength, the destructive power erupted from the mountains, directly caused the change of the competition. He punched through the test machine like Vegeta. The expensive test machine was completely destroyed, and the sponsor, who had no replacement, was completely at a loss at this time. However, compared with that situation, what people care more about is the power exerted by the mountains. After all, the ultimate load of the machine is 50 pounds. And, the mountain range can penetrate it with one punch, which shows how terrifying his strength is. This can't help but make the rest of the masters feel defensive, including Bai. In the most towering observation room, Barkley watched the progress of the race anxiously. He kept using the pager to ask questions, and asked the staff at the scene to immediately give a solution to. But the so-called Jun Chi made it dizzy. As the leader, Barkru had no plan to speak of. How could the rest of the subordinates think of careful arrangements? Damn, it's all a bunch of rubbish. Did Lousy spend money to support you in vain? The furious Barkru began to swear in foul language, and the unexpected encounters one after another caused him to lose the calmness he deserved. And just when the situation gradually fell into a quagmire, his secretary, IELTS, played a key role. Boss, it's a foregone conclusion that it's a foregone conclusion. Why don't we push the boat forward and let the competition enter the second stage? Oh. With so many people, the process will become too slow, which will affect the viewing effect. Barkru responded meaningfully. Yes, but I have already thought about it. I can temporarily change the arrangement of the second item, so that the one-on-one will become a big melee, and the screening will be carried out in a poisonous way. The guy who finally stands on the ring is naturally the most powerful one. The arrangement of IELTS made Barkrux very satisfied. He took out a cigar from the drawer with relief, and looked at all the living beings under the stands with ant-like eyes. What a fun project. It's been a long time since I've seen that bloody scene. Barkrux approved this arrangement, and IELTS immediately proceeded to handle it. She moved her slender jade legs, and the line between her waist and buttocks was like a mysterious magic zone, which finally made people unable to stop looking at it. Half an hour later, the on-site staff received instructions from IELTS. Although it was a bit abrupt, it was more convenient for those subordinates to operate. Ladies and gentlemen, due to the total scrapping of the machine, we hereby decide that all contestants will be eligible for the promotion. But at the same time, the arrangement of the event has also changed. The one-on-one duel in the second event has been transformed into a 20-person melee. Only the last player standing on the scene is eligible to qualify for the next event. With the announcement of the information, the players' hearts have undergone tremendous changes. But for those spectators in the stands, it was an unprecedented pleasure. Everyone knows how bloody it will be once the big melee begins. At the same time, they can also see the most insidious tricks, and the darkness of human nature. Negative things, although not worth promoting. But the attitude of being curious about it is the inferiority of every human being. In the face of nature, only a very few people can jump out of it, and it is also true that the detached person will become a greater existence than the hero. The screen rotates. The voice of expectation sounded in the venue, and the scorching atmosphere affected everyone present. The audience and the players are gearing up for the event, waiting for the event. Then, since everyone has no objection, the second event of the martial arts conference officially begins. We will randomly draw the game in a group of 20 people, and ask the contestants to draw lots according to the instructions of the on-site staff. Under the arrangement of the host, everyone started to take action. For some weak people, their biggest expectation is to bypass those terrifying monsters as much as possible. If it is possible to fight the chicken all the way, it is naturally the best choice, but with Bucklu's character, he will definitely carry out some secret operations in this stand. Buckle swallowed the cigar in his hand with a look of enjoyment. He was thinking about a very interesting thing, that is, to avoid the appearance of lucky people. He didn't want to see the final, when two extremely poor guys would dance awkwardly in the center of the stage. So in order to avoid this kind of thing, he had to make arrangements for the players on the spot. In fact, as early as when the contestants signed up, Barkley definitely conducted an investigation. Although he couldn't know the bottom line, compared to the general media, the information he had was still very accurate. Roger, instruct the subordinates to rank the players according to the strength of the players. You can't make any mistakes this time, or I will definitely kill you. Baruch's tough tone made Roger dare not have any doubts. He walked out of the observation room like walking on thin ice, and then walked into the operation center of the competition with the fastest pace. Everyone listened to me, and immediately pulled out the files of the players. Boss wants to see a close match, no negligence is allowed. At Roger's request, many of the younger brothers started to operate the computer one after another, and the powerful background computing power quickly got the ideal answer. The entire screening process did not take more than 5 minutes, which was enough for Roger et al. The screen rotates. The organizing committee of the event received instructions from Roger, and they secretly adjusted the number sequence of the players to present the results calculated in advance to everyone. Because the whole process was handled very cleverly, it did not cause suspicion among the players. It's just that after the results were announced, some lucky guys immediately sighed at the injustice of their fate. At the same time, other players who are at the middle and upper level of strength are tacitly adopting the method of forming alliances. They must first eliminate the most dangerous guys, and then carry out internal struggles. Although such an arrangement is a bit despicable, it can be regarded as a means of survival for small people. Just when the players started to prepare, Mu Bai, who was in a relaxed state, suddenly saw a familiar figure in the crowd. Mu Bai couldn't believe his eyes. At the very beginning, he even felt that something was wrong with his eyes. But as he kept paying attention, he finally made a confirmation that the beautiful woman standing not far in front was Bai Ling, who had just escaped from the Barcrew organization not long ago. Wheat. Pushing aside the crowd in front of him, Mu Bai struggled to shuttle. Because Bai Ling is really too beautiful, the men around her also rose sharply. In the mouths of those stern guys, Bai Ling became the target of ridicule. They were either indecent or deliberately provocative. As the party involved, Bai Ling was not surprised by those vulgar behaviors. She seemed to stand out from the crowd, ignoring those vulgar people with a proud demeanor. Hey, you are here. Just when everyone started to speculate about Bai Ling's identity, Mu Bai suddenly broke the harmonious atmosphere. His sudden appearance made all the males' eyes turn to him. Where is this kid from? He really dares to approach him. Haha, I don't think he knows how much he weighs, and there will be a good show in a while. A group of people began to talk. They mistakenly thought that Mu Bai was a toad who wanted to eat swan meat, and deliberately used the old-fashioned way to strike up a conversation, trying to get close to the cold-looking beauty. But just when everyone was waiting to see the show, Bai Ling made a move that didn't fit her personality. Excited, Bai Ling rushed directly to Mu Bai, and greeted Mu Bai in a very excited tone. So you're here too? As soon as Bai Ling said this, the men around her all said something different. They really couldn't imagine how the extremely ordinary guy in front of him had a relationship with Bai Ling. Well, it's a coincidence, but put this topic aside for now. What's the matter with you? After Mu Bai finished speaking, he looked around. Due to the large number of onlookers around him, he didn't wait for Bai Ling to respond. He directly grabbed the opponent's wrist, and with irresistible force, searched Bai Ling to a relatively remote area. Bai Ling, you should know who the organizer is. Mu Bai asked. He had to figure out what the other party was thinking. Of course I know, otherwise I wouldn't come here. Bai Ling said calmly, which made Bai even more different. Hey, you're not insane, are you? This is Barcrew's territory. You managed to get rid of the other party, so why are you making trouble for yourself? Mu Bai, you're wrong. I'm not here to make trouble this time, but to solve the problem. What's the meaning? Barcrew is monstrous and has a very warm relationship with the upper echelons, and I have considerable evidence to prove that there is some kind of connection between him and the Hero Association. If this guy's affairs are not fully exposed, then he can always get away with impunity. Today, Bai Ling, got away with it, so what about the other girls? Bai Ling's righteous words made Bai stunned. Not to mention the sense of justice that the other party exudes at this time. Just hearing that there is a connection between Barcrew and the Hero Association is enough to shock Mu Bai for 300 years. Wait a minute, you mean, Barcrew has a secret relationship with the higher-ups of the Hero Association, and it's a crime? Mu Bai asked in confusion. That's right, that's it. Otherwise how could he achieve such a scale? Bai Ling's unequivocal answer completely eliminated Mu Bai's confusion. But things like exposure are too dangerous for Bai Ling. For the sake of life safety, Mu Bai suggested that Bai Ling put the evidence into his hands, so that even if the other party intends to retaliate, he can get out of his body. There is nothing wrong with such a thoughtful arrangement, but Bai Ling, who was in a state of stubbornness, declined Mu Bai's proposal. She insists on explaining herself and repeats her ideas in an irrefutable tone. Between this back and forth, Mu Bai was also speechless. He knew that from the current situation, even if he spoke very clearly, the other party would not accept it. And if you use chaos magic to hypnotize, you will definitely cause trouble afterwards. So after thinking about it, Mu Bai silently made an arrangement in his heart. Bai Ling, this is your own business. Since you solve your doubts yourself, I also respect your choice. But as a friend, I still have a question that I want to figure out. Well, you said. What is your implementation plan, and what is the evidence to overthrow Barcrew? Why are you curious about this? Of course, to help you. Thank you. I have my own arrangements. You are right, but the variables here are huge. If there is no chance to implement it, even the most sophisticated plan will be stillborn. This time, it was Bai Ling's turn to have nothing to say. She lowered her arrogant head, with a frown on her face, thinking about the changes. Mu Bai, if I tell you all this, will you help me? Bai Ling raised her head suddenly, and the look in her eyes was full of anticipation. Mu Bai's sincere performance won Bai Ling's trust. The other party will tell all their plans and all, expecting to get the greatest help. On the other hand, Mu Bai didn't hesitate for a moment after listening to Bai Ling's narration. This guy filled in the details of the plan with a very professional perspective. After some discussion, Bai Ling's psychology changed. She completely accepted Mu Bai's suggestion and reduced her guard against that guy. Mu Bai, thank you for your tolerance for me. After this matter is over, I will definitely repay you. Bai Ling's face was serious, which added a touch of charm to her appearance. Haha. What you said is too polite. We are already friends, we don't need to be like this. Mu Bai responded quickly. Compared to the other party's expression, he seemed much more relaxed. Well, no matter what, I will never forget your help to me. Now let's go back first, so as not to arouse suspicion. Okay. Just do as you say. The two returned to the middle of the team, and under the surveillance of many eyes, they were particularly dazzling. In fact, this is not a good thing for Mu Bai. After all, there are many people who are popular in right and wrong, and too much attention will only make some people with ulterior motives move their bad intentions to themselves. Somewhere in the corner, the two men were whispering, and what they were talking about at this time was what Bai was most worried about. Bai Ling's unparalleled beauty is both a temptation and a danger. All the guys who try to get close to her will become the target of public criticism. Boss, what do you think that kid is from? He was the first to pass the test, and he was able to get along with that beauty alone. I think he must have a good background. A man with a wretched face communicated with the man in front of him in a dangerous tone. You're right. This man must pay more attention. I suspect that he is deliberately hiding his identity. Maybe he is the real dark horse. Another man responded. If that's the case, what should we do? We're assigned to the same area as him. The wretched man continued to respond. Don't worry about this, I will be in series with the rest of the guys. Compared with the most difficult number 205, this guy is the most important. Conspiracies grow in the corners, and in the face of Mu Bai's malice, they begin to ferment in the dark. At this time, Mu Bai, who was completely unaware, thought that except for a slight fluctuation in his mood, he did not think of the rest of the situation at all. With the passage of time, the first game is finally officially started. The 20 contestants headed by Bai stepped onto the ring amid the shouts of the audience. Such a peculiar way of competition seems extremely unfamiliar to many players. But for some other few people, it is an unexpected favor. They can take a dominant advantage in the competition through strong interpersonal relationships, so as to eliminate the situation of dissidence. Dear viewers, the exciting time has finally come, and now let us call out the most enthusiastic shouts to arouse the fighting spirit of these warriors. The host began to shake and shout, and the emotions of the audience were also ignited again. Amid the mighty shouts, the 20 contestants entered a state of battle in an instant. Haha, I'm really looking forward to it. Mu Bai smiled and fled directly to the corner of the stage. This guy intends to use guerrilla warfare to get the promotion to this knockout. But what everyone did not expect was that from the moment the battle started, there were 15 players sitting in a group. They began to keep approaching Mu Bai, so that the remaining 4 players didn't know what to do. Damn it, no way, how can you still operate like this? Mu Bai was greatly surprised. He finally understood where the previous emotional fluctuations came from. Such an absurd picture caused the audience to talk a lot, but as a staff member of the referee team, they chose to ignore this situation. Hey! Referee! Can they do this? Mu Bai shouted loudly, his eyes full of confusion. From the rules, there is no problem. If you have any objections, you can do the above after the game. The referee responded with a blank face. Damn it! If it's all over, what's the use of the above? Mu Bai was extremely unhappy with the referee's response, but after the other party heard it, he no longer responded positively. Instead, he warned Mu Bai to pay attention to his words, otherwise he would declare Mu Bai out on the grounds of insulting the referee. What? Such an irresponsible approach is really hard for Mu Bai to understand. But where there is so-called oppression, there is resistance. Since no one is willing to stand up and speak for Bai must use his fists to fight for his interests. Well, anyway, you are all like this, then I will tell you how terrible it is to choose the wrong opponent. Annoyed, Mu Bai gave up his plan to conceal his strength. He leapt to the center of the stage, and greeted those despicable people with a condescending attitude. Those who are in a hurry to be beaten, come here quickly. Mu Bai stopped drinking, and the emotions in the stands were collectively high. People were chanting Mu Bai's number, and the rest of the contestants near the edge of the stage saw the other side of things. This guy is very strong. It is the common cognition of all masters, but for those rookies, it is difficult to comprehend the true meaning of it. The young people who held the group mistakenly thought that Mu Bai was just accumulating popularity for himself, and all the behaviors of May 30th were just hype. Out of this stupid idea, the first death squads rushed towards Mu Bai. What is worth noting here is that those who confronted Bai did not enter the audition by strength. In other words, they don't have the strength to hit 3,000 pounds at all, and the reason why they can stand on this stage is purely just luck. Boy, don't blame us. If you want to blame it, blame you for being too aggressive. The guy who bore the brunt made an excuse for his prevalent behavior, and after the speech was over, he gave Mu Bai a weak attack. In order to give the opponent a psychological shock, Mu Bai did not choose to dodge, but collided with the opponent's fist with his forehead. As for the results, it is obviously self-evident. That stupid unlucky bastard wailed on the ground in pain, his hand bones were completely shattered, and his tears gushed like spring water. Seeing that his teammates had been hit so hard, the rest of the flies slowed down the pace of the attack and did not dare to make any reckless actions. Huh. Is this shrinking? Mu Bai chuckled, and the contempt in his heart suddenly rose. Since you don't plan to come, then I'll go. After expressing his position, Mu Bai was full of anger. The power he burst out in an instant directly shattered the stage under his feet into slag. Mu Bai, who was completely red-eyed, attacked the surrounding players indiscriminately with the tendency of a tiger out of the cage. Although there is still some restraint in terms of strength, but even so, those rabble are still difficult to digest, all showing the tragic situation of the first man. It takes time, the voices of mourning are endless, and the ugly martial artists have become the laughing stock of all the audience. Facing such a scene, another guy with fighting ability on the stage couldn't stand it any longer. It's really embarrassing. With your garbage-like cultivation, don't continue to slander martial arts. The man with serial number 205 rebuked with high-pitched emotions. And before the sound disappeared, he threw all the rest of the contestants out of the stage at a speed of lightning and flint, but Mu Bai was the only one left. The garbage has been cleaned up. Now, let the audience take a look at what a real warrior is. Number 205 put on a fighting stance. He didn't have too many chats with Mu Bai, and he didn't have any other offensive thoughts. For number 205 at this time, playing a truly commendable game is the top priority. On the other hand, Mu Bai, after seeing the other party's intentions, also put away his previous violent gesture, and gave an equal response with a relatively respectful expression. It seems that you are different from those guys and should be a respectable opponent. Mu Bai also took a stance, and with absolute concentration, he began to observe the basic situation of his opponent. Haha, it is an honor for me to be recognized by you. But there can only be one winner of the competition, so please be careful. As soon as No 205's voice fell, he displayed a faster moving pace. He instantly moved in front of Mu Bai, hitting 30 punches per second with an immeasurable force. Sure kill. 1,000 strikes in an instant. After the super difficult blow was completed, number 205 made a prayer move. He mistakenly thought that he had won the victory, so he did that kind of ceremonial behavior. But just as this guy bowed his head in praise, Mu Bai, who had no waves, grabbed the opponent's head. He smiled, and the angle of his eyes squeezed, making him look like a ghost that climbed from hell. Your attack is very creative, and the speed is really fast, but there is still a lack of strength in terms of strength, such as this. As soon as Mu Bai finished speaking, he lifted number 205 into the air, and then performed the same trick on the opponent with a saturated strike. 1,000 kills in an instant. Mu Bai stopped drinking and threw out 6 punches. Although it is obviously lower than the opponent in terms of times, in terms of damage, it is crushed by crushing. Number 205 was beaten to the point of fainting, without the slightest ability to resist. Although he was much stronger than those who hesitated, he was still insignificant in front of Mu Bai's absolute strength. The first knockout match ended with Mu Bai's absolute advantage. Except for Bai Ling, the rest of the contestants in the field did not expect this result. The audience shouted Mu Bai's name, and this kind of voice will inevitably enter the ears of Barclay. What? That guy is Mu Bai. Barclay crushed the cigar in his hand, his angry eyes like a volcano erupting. All kinds of humiliation appeared in his mind, and his unwillingness to aggrieve even dominated his emotions. Damn, that bastard dares to appear here, It seems that he really didn't take me seriously. Bikru's extremely unhappy remarks showed how much he hated Mubai. But at this stage, he has not been able to turn his face in public. However, there is a way out for everything. Just when Buklu was in a rut, he, who has been in the business all his life, still thought of a wonderful method. Yes, I can define the championship fight as a life and death battle, so that even if Mubai wins, he will not be able to retreat completely. With such an idea in mind, Baru regained a cheerful mood. He took out a brand new cigar from the drawer again, and then used the paging system on the desk to call the secretary IELTS. IELTS, come to my office. The exposure of his identity will have a certain impact on Mubai. But in its essence, it only exists at the official level. For other contestants, Mubai has nothing to pay attention to except for a certain threat, especially for those who are masters. The second game of the competition continued, and this time the players included Bai Ling. But compared to her white situation, she is not much better, because among the players in the same group, there are bugs like Gobin Rokuro. As a popular player in Matchpoint, Shadowkill, Wubin Rokuro is the undisputed king. Just when the staff read out his number, the emotions of the audience were instantly aroused. Wubin Rokuro, dressed in pitch black, stood proudly in the corner like a lone wolf. He had no intention of engaging in unnecessary fights, but instead told those fellows who were competing on the same stage in a very clear way that it was best to choose to quit. Such a mighty performance made the other players dare not speak out, but as the same competitive opponent, Bai Ling's performance was different. She is well aware of a man's mind. When the other party is humiliated and attacked, a woman's words often play an unimaginable role. Everyone, are you really frightened by him? If so, I advise you to surrender as soon as possible, so as not to delay my duel with that guy. Bai Ling's words and deeds deeply stimulated those guys. Although they knew that they couldn't touch Bai Ling's body, it would be too shameless if even their hearts were rejected. In order to defend the dignity of men, many contestants spontaneously formed a crusade team. And unlike Mubai's winebag and rice bag, this group of people are real trainers, and there is absolutely no situation of overcharging. Everyone, today we'll show that little sister what a pure man is. Many male contestants let out a roar, like baboons living in groups, scrambling to prove to the females that they are the ones worthy of the other party's lifelong betrothal. Kill. A loud cry is a defense of male dignity, and their high-profile attack method also brought the audience in the stands. Although human beings all have the favor of hero worship, it is a good choice to be able to personally participate in the counterattack of the little people. Kill. Also in the stands, a group of people who empathized with the guys cheered on the players under the stage. They all expected to defeat the mighty shadow execution through the power of unity. But the cruelty of reality often exceeds people's expectations. Although this temporarily formed team is not very weak, it still seems a little insignificant when facing Wubin Rokuro. In this game, numbers are not the key to winning. Gobin Rokuro made a sound, and immediately began to seal. The unique ninjutsu effect caused a huge black fog to appear on the back of his body, and red light flashed from time to time. Shadow, 100 Ghosts Reborn. With the launch of the ninjutsu, hundreds of black monsters suddenly appeared in the shadows. In terms of form, most of them look like Kama Itachi and Eagle, but in terms of power presentation, there is a world of difference. Any guy caught by a monster will have a hard time getting rid of that bondage. Even if the rest of the teammates stepped forward to help, it would take considerable effort. It can be seen that just relying on these monsters is enough to limit those contestants. For Gobin Rokuro, who has not yet taken the initiative to attack, victory is only a matter of time. The once bizarre picture subverted people's cognition of martial Tao. As the players competing on the same stage, those guys carried out the above to the organizing committee. They asked the organizing committee to disqualify Gobin Rokuro, because the power displayed by the other party at this time was not purely physical ability. Logically speaking, there is nothing wrong with the demands of this group of guys, but with the result that Bakru needs now, he will definitely choose to acquiesce. After all, the person who is going to fight Mubai to the death in the end must have a considerable level, even if it is beyond the scope of martial arts, as long as it can be used by Bakru, he will accept it. Tell that group of trash, there is nothing wrong with Wubin Ryurokuro's ability, but to put it mildly. Bakru gave instructions, and his staff immediately understood it. They stopped the game first, and then interpreted it from multiple perspectives. They continued the game until everyone figured out the rules. Wasting so much time just to fight for an answer, your situation is still too weak after all. After standing on the stage again, Gobin Rokuro made a rare initiative to speak. He was upset about the previous events because he was a guy with a great sense of time. Since that group of people wasted his time in vain, in the next action, Wubin Ryukuro directly took out the killing intent. He first looked at the referee on the side and asked if there could be a deathmatch. After confirming that this was a violation of the rules, Gobin Rokuro showed a disappointed look and activated his ability again. The rules save your life, but I'll let you always remember, what a stupid thing to waste other people's time. After saying that, Gobin Rokuro stretched his arms, and a thick dark fog burst out from his inner body. Compared with the previous scene, the black fog that emerged this time is obviously very oppressive. Faced with such a bizarre scene, some players felt a crisis. Among them, the timid guy even jumped out of the ring to protect himself. As for those who did not leave, they showed their own housekeeping skills one after another. In the face of unknown dangers, it was the most foolish act to keep spare energy. Very good, it seems that you have already come to your senses, so I can rest assured. Wubin Rokuro spoke again, and then his eyes were turned. A tall samurai emerged from the dark fog, which was in stark contrast to him dressed as a ninja. The very Japanese-style elements attract the attention of all spectators. At this time, they no longer pursued the issue of martial Tao, but looked forward with anticipation to see what kind of scene would be presented next. King Black Rope Daming is my strongest summoned beast, you should feel honored as a gift of money. Gohan Rokuro waved one hand, and the samurai beside him drew the dagger from his waist. The blade was 3 meters long, and the luminous inscriptions carved all over it gave people a gloomy feeling. Go ahead. With an order, the huge armored warriors rushed to attack. His movement speed is very fast, and there is no restraint of the armor at all. In a blink of an eye, the samurai came into the crowd. Since the main body is composed of a dark fog, physical blows can't have any effect on him at all. But on the other hand, this guy's attack has unmatched strength. He just waved the tachi lightly and chopped off the arms of the 6 players. It took time. The bright red blood infected the broadcast station of the blockbuster, and the bloody scene also changed the audience's mood. Such a violent scene is the first time for most viewers to see it. Although they are not good men and women, they are law-abiding citizens living in a harmonious society after all, and it is difficult for them to accept that kind of stimulation for a while. My God, shouldn't there be any human life? Some viewers began to mutter, for fear of a life-changing scene. Don't worry, no matter how powerful the organizer is, things that violate laws and regulations will still be avoided. Another group of viewers gave their own opinions, but which direction the situation will develop depends on Gobin Rokuro's own thoughts. After all, that guy's job is to kill people. Even if he loses the qualification for the championship, it does not hinder his living arrangements. You guys are so weak, I'm fed up with this boring game. Gobin Rokuro spoke again and personally participated in the finishing work. As this guy's pace continued to approach, the remaining contestants also chose to give up. At this time, Bai Ling was the only one who was still standing in the center of the stage, staring at the menacing killer with an unyielding expression. Woman, aren't you afraid of me? Wubin Rokuro was expressionless, but the subtle movements between his fingers were enough to obliterate Bai Ling immediately. Wheat. Afraid? I've seen guys who are much more powerful than you, so why should I be afraid of you? Bai Ling's answer was very aura, and her answer was definitely not a myth. Whether it's Hungry Wolf or Mu Bai, even Sweetheart Mosk's strength is far superior to Gobin Rokuro in front of him. But despite the fact, Bai Ling ignored a very important thing. Compared with those guys, Wubin Rokuro is the real killer. This guy has no concept of morality, all actions are just to get the job done. In some extraordinary times, he will even take extremely cruel measures, and there is no hesitation. After listening to Bai Ling's words, Rokuro Wubin let out a rare laugh. He first laughed at Bai Ling's arrogance, and then laughed at the rules of the tournament. Such an abnormal scene of Rokuro Gobin made all the staff quite nervous. Because they knew very well that with that guy's behavior, he would definitely do something very brutal. Among the worried crowd, Mu Bai's performance is the most clear. He was aware of some kind of danger, and even predicted the bad consequences that Bai Ling might incur. No, I can't let that guy die here. Mu Bai had a plan. He broke away from the crowd and activated his own chaos magic in a very remote corner. Bai Ling, can you hear me? Mu Bai had a telepathy with the other party, and the other party immediately gave feedback after receiving it. I heard your voice. What's the matter? Bai Ling asked rhetorically. Well, I need you to understand now that the guy standing in front of you is a very terrible murderer. If you continue to provoke the other party, your plan will never be realized. What should I do? It's very simple. From now on, give your body to me to run. I will greatly enhance you through my abilities. Can this kind of thing be done? Yes, I have tried it. Okay. Then I'll leave this body of mine to you to deal with. After the two spoke, Mu Bai pulled his soul away. He descended into Bai Ling's body, and with the power of God of Destruction, forcibly maintained the rejection between the two. I've kept you waiting. Please start now. After gaining control of Bai Ling's body, Mu Bai immediately launched a battle invitation to Goben Rokuro. And after the other party heard it, he stopped talking nonsense. Okay. The short answer was a determination of will, and after the official response, Rokuro Goben launched the attack first. He first lifted the effect of the Black Rope Daming King, and returned the energy to the city. When the state of his body was at its best, he threw a heavy punch. The strong fist hit Bai Ling's neck. If Bai Ling's body was to bear the force, she would definitely die on the spot. But since the body has been occupied by Bai at this moment, the result of death can naturally be avoided. But just when everyone expected Bai Ling to fight back, Mu Bai made a very contrasting move. He actually returned his body, allowing Bai Ling's soul to continue to dominate his body. At the moment when the powers were transferred between the two, Bai Ling suddenly felt a strong emergency response. Her eyes began to faint, and the feeling of vertigo became stronger. Although she wanted to try her best to maintain her state, the unbearable blow finally defeated her body. Bai Ling fainted and appeared in front of everyone with a gesture of no resistance, and the scene at this time was quite strange to Goben Rokuro. In his plan, Bai Ling's head should be broken into countless pieces by him like a watermelon. But the other party actually withstood the heavy damage with a slender body. But having said that, since Bai Ling has already lost the qualification of the competition, Goben Rokuro will not continue to pursue it. He walked off the stage with a look of disgust, waiting for a fight that would allow him to use his full strength. The screen rotates. Mu Bai in the corner was rubbing his neck desperately. In fact, the presentation of all these results is in his calculations. If he directly interfered with Bai Ling's plan, the opponent would definitely break the boat and shake out the Bakru thing directly in the middle of the game. And once this situation occurs, the bonus that Mu Bai is looking forward to will definitely be in vain. Therefore, in order to avoid such an outcome, and at the same time ensure Bai Ling's safety, Mu Bai would not hesitate to go to great lengths to use the hands of Goben Rokuro to achieve his desired outcome. That bastard, it's really hard to start. Mu Bai muttered with a wry smile, and then walked slowly to the corner. His state has completely recovered, and the complaints he had made before were just an expression of boredom. What's going to be interesting next? The third audition started, and the intensity was no less than the previous two competitions. The emotions of the audience are still high, and the players participating in the competition have gradually adapted to the rhythm of the competition. As the finale of this event, the so-called Mountain Sportsmaster has naturally become a much anticipated star. However, this guy's behavior is also difficult to make people think through. He took the same approach as Rokuro Goben, standing quietly in the corner of the ring, with the attitude of an absolute powerhouse, waiting for the final challenge, his opponent. Oh my god, is this the privilege of the strong? The mountain player took the initiative to act as the boss of the level. Who can win his favor? Under the instigation of the host, everyone understood the intention of the mountain, and they gave up the plan to win, and instead launched an invitation to their opponents as true seekers. Very good. This is the character a martial artist should possess, and the guy who challenges me in the end will accept him as an entry-level disciple. Ley Line's rhetoric inspired the fighting spirit of the players, and he changed everyone's minds by relying only on his own words. Everyone started a fierce battle, from the competition for prize money to a challenge to the mountains. However, just when everyone was fighting like fire, a discordant voice suddenly dispelled everyone's passion. It's really boring to actually do such a small family's business. The harsh voice immediately caught everyone's attention. The guy who spoke was a man in a green suit who looked like a businessman. His abrupt style of painting seemed out of tune with the entire scene, and it was a little surprising that such an eye-catching guy was unexpectedly ignored from the very beginning. Who are you? How dare you talk to Mr. Shanshan like that? A devout believer began to take the initiative to fight for his idol, but the man in the green suit sneered after hearing about it. It's really interesting, the master didn't rush to speak, but the dog barked first. What did you say? Is it not clear what I said? The undisguised provocation of the man in the suit further stimulates the contradiction. As a martial artist, after hearing about it, the opponent will naturally choose the means he is best at. In order to teach this guy a lesson, the warrior directly sent out a heads-up invitation, intending to use the most severe punches to smash the opponent's rudeness and prejudice. Haha, it's beyond my imagination that you dare to singled out against me. As soon as the man in the suit finished speaking, he launched an attack. This guy's attack method is extremely despicable, so that the onlookers next to him can't bear it. You guy doesn't talk about martial arts, and you engage in sneak attacks. So what? If you feel uncomfortable, you can come together. Such rampant performance is simply rare. Even the most arrogant violent criminal has never had this man's exaggeration. Since he dared to make a request to all the players present, as a just party, if he did not fight back, he would obviously have the image of a warrior. Brothers, don't talk nonsense with him. Since he wants to taste the taste of fist, then we will let him do so. The man who took the lead gave an order, and everyone rushed over. But before the two sides could fight, the mountain range standing in the corner suddenly roared, preventing that kind of behavior. Stop it all. Don't fall for that guy's tricks. We are warriors and shouldn't be instigated by villains. As soon as Shanshan finished speaking, he jumped up, and he jumped directly in front of the man in the suit. The two looked at each other, and the scorching atmosphere ignited the rest of the contestants. They consciously withdrew from the scene, and the two who stayed also clarified the topic. Since you have an opinion on my proposal, please use your strength to prove to me that I am naive. Shanshan was the first to speak, and his words and deeds with a sense of justice even inspired the audience in the stands. Okay, no problem, so let's get started now. The man in the suit looked arrogant, even in the face of a master like the mountain range, he never had the slightest timidity. Boom. Shanshan took the lead in launching the attack, and his backhand punched heavily on the opponent's chest. You must know that it is a heavy punch that is enough to destroy the test machine. If ordinary people take it, the result is unimaginable. Cough cough. The man in the suit was knocked back to the corner, and the blood that kept pouring out of his mouth was the best proof of his injury. As expected of an elite-level player, it can really hurt me. The man in the suit wiped the blood from his mouth, and his frantic expression began to subside, but instead, there was a very oppressive aura. I advise you not to stand in the same place stupidly, or you will really die. The man's expensive suit began to fall off, and his full and strong muscles appeared in front of everyone. Different from this guy's businessman temperament, the muscular dimension full of strength is simply a violation. Before attacking, let me tell you something merciful. The man in the suit began to jump, his light pace was like a tango. What's the matter? The mountain range was expressionless, and still clasped his hands in front of his chest, standing in place like a mountain peak. Lousy is called a bull, which means that if you want to compete with me in strength, you are not qualified. The man who called himself a bull had a big ups and downs in his eyes. After he said a word of warning, he made a preparation move. He lowered his body, and his strong leg muscles gave him a strong support for the next movement in a vigorous manner. Hey! The bulls took shelter, and the huge impact even destroyed half of the broadcasting station. Such an exaggerated scene made the mountains shake. Although this guy from the mountain is a bit stubborn, in front of the real powerhouse, he is not stupid enough to do nothing. The shield mountain is open. The mountain raised its arms in an X shape as a means of resisting the impact. With the collision between the two, the messy airflow directly affected the audience in the front row. God! I'm almost out of breath. The continuous rushing airflow leads to insufficient supply of oxygen, which is a fatal consequence for ordinary people. Seeing that those innocent audiences were about to suffer, the rest of the powerhouses outside the field immediately intervened. Storm. With a loud bang, the airflow instantly turned into a tornado. Although it looked a bit terrifying, the tornado quickly dissipated on the scene under the deliberate guidance of the master. Shanshan, if you can't defeat that guy, then surrender as soon as possible, don't put a burden on me. The speaker is called Cruise 8, and he is a product created by a gene technology company. What is different about the home of chemical technology is that the genetic technology company's development is mainly aimed at the dual combination of biology and technology. HMPH, Cruise, you should pay more attention to yourself. I don't need you to worry about my affairs. The mountain range responded, and at the same time he re-aware of the threat. The bull who is confronting him in front of him is definitely an existence that needs all his strength to be defeated. If it is still like before, always taking the initiative to apologize and give 3 points, then the unlucky guy in the end will definitely be himself. It seems that I really underestimated you. On this issue, I apologize to you. The mountain range's response was that the bull was excellent. He had never met such a bizarre guy before. When the two armies faced off, he would take the initiative to express apology to each other. This was simply absurd. Hey, are you making fun of me? Man Niu was a little upset because he felt insulted. No, on the contrary, I am ashamed of my ignorance. The mountain responded quickly, and then he got out of the confrontation again. When the two kept their distance again, the mountain also took off his pure white coat, revealing his body like a rock. The profound meaning of physical art, Confang. A roar sounded, and an image similar to a mirage appeared behind the mountain range. It was a manifestation of detached spiritual energy, which could be transmitted through a unique medium to obtain the gift of nature. Come on. The mountains are in high spirits in time, and he firmly believes that under the protection of the mountains and rivers, he can do everything. However, when his opponent Manu saw this, he actually grinned. This guy relaxed his nervous state, but instead responded to the various actions of the mountains with a listless performance. It seems that the gap between you and me is not just a star and a half. As soon as the bull's words were finished, a similar scene appeared from the back of the body. It's just that compared to the mountains, the picture that emerges behind him is much more gloomy. It was an erupting volcano, and billowing smoke covered the entire sky. At the foot of the mountain where the magma abused, there were skeletons of animals and plants everywhere, and the swamps that had been rotten and rancid. Since you want to gain power, why not be more straightforward? Bull made his own remarks, and the attack was launched at the same moment. He rushed to the front of the mountain at a speed that was difficult for ordinary people to capture. This guy used the tip of his elbow as a sharp blade and penetrated the opponent's defense. A dull sound came out, and the sternum of the mountain was completely shattered. It's not over yet. The bull continued to exert his strength, and the volcano scene behind him also reflected a symmetrical scene. As the magma spewed out, the blood of the bull began to become hot, and the ghostly white smoke, like the candlelight of the morning hall, constantly appeared on his body. Hurt. A huge red word appeared on the chest of the mountain, and the lines spread like a dry riverbed. The blood hidden under the skin began to collect continuously to the word, hurt, and the mountain's face was also like a skinny mummified corpse. Such wicked dark methods made Mu Bai outside the field immediately think of weirdos, and it was for this reason that his eyes became no longer simple. The situation began to develop in an uncertain direction, and a treacherous atmosphere began to spread in the venue. Why do you guys use weird tricks? The mountain has a strange face, and its wide pupils are like demon cats at night. Wow, you don't need to worry about this matter. The bull's eyes widened, and the fierce tone contained a very obvious killing intent. Kill, decisive. The bulls exerted their strength again, and the blood-colored aerosol began to condense to his hands. After everything was ready, a dull sound ended the contest between him and the mountains. The winner is a bully player. Please medical staff to treat the wounded immediately. The host announced the results of the event, and the mountain passed out in a near-fatal state. The presentation of this scene ignited the emotions of the audience. No one will feel sorry for his defeat. The strong will always be the existence that people admire. The screen rotates. In the off-field medical hall, all injured players were carried there. From minor bumps to serious life-threatening situations, they will receive the most professional treatment. And when Mu Bai stepped in as a visitor, Bai Ling, who just woke up, burst into uncontrollable anger. Mu Bai, you bastard, how dare you plot against me? Bai Ling angrily walked to the front of the other party, and regardless of the strange eyes of others, she wanted to make a settlement with Mu Bai. Hey, calm down first, there are many people here, don't lose your mind. Seeing that the situation was not good, Mu Bai immediately responded. His words were like a basin of cool ice water, and the angry Bai Ling returned to her normal state in an instant. Bai Ling, how is your injury? Mu Bai changed the subject and cared. It's no big deal. After all, my blood can heal cancer, and this kind of nerve damage won't cause long-lasting effects. Bai Ling replied. Okay, since that's the case, let's move forward and talk. I have a new discovery to tell you. The two of Mu Bai came to the corner of the corridor to ensure that no one was around, and Mu Bai informed the other party of the suspicion in his heart. Bai Ling, I suspect that weird people have sneaked into this event, and they have some conspiracy. Huh. The weirdos you're talking about, the ones who are constantly sabotaging? Yes. That's weird. I remember they like to show up in an extremely rude way. That was once, and most of them were low-level weirdos. This time, the object of my suspicion is someone with certain strength, and I estimate that his level is comparable to that of an S-level hero. What did you say? S-level hero? If that's what you think, isn't the audience here in danger? This is not necessarily. What I am most worried about is why the guy does this. Mu Bai's eyes began to deepen, and his sad look also infected Bai Ling, who was beside him. After all, the two of them had cooperated once. Therefore, Bai Ling is also very clear about Mu Bai's cognition. Being able to make such a strong character show that kind of expression shows how bad things are. Mu Bai, since you have an idea, why don't you communicate with the staff of the Hero Association? Bai Ling expressed her doubts. Well, I'm a little ashamed to say that, I have selfishness. If the personnel of the Hero Association intervene, then this tournament will definitely be terminated, and then my prize money will be completely lost. What? The amazing Mu Bai once again overturned Bai Ling's three views. She originally thought that the other party would be the kind of character who cares about the country and the people, but she never thought that the dignified Mu Bai would actually say such vulgar thoughts. I'll tell you plainly, your awareness is too low. There is no way out. If I hadn't encountered economic problems, how could I have come over to join in the fun? Mu Bai's helpless response was like a child who was wronged, but as his narrator, Bai Ling found the key. Since Mu Bai is troubled by money at this time, helping him to solve this problem will definitely be rewarded in strength again. Thinking of this, Bai Ling immediately smiled. She took out her mobile phone, quickly switched pages, and revealed the page with the account deposit in front of Mu Bai. Mu Bai, if I hire you with money, will you help me? Mu Bai's eyes widened, and with an incredible expression, he checked the numbers on his phone. 1, 10, 100, 1,000, 10,000, 100,000, 1 million, 10 million, 100 and 200 million? Not inferior to the reward of the bounty, Mu Bai's heart was shaken. He couldn't believe that Bai Ling, who was about the same age as him, actually possessed such wealth. In order to ensure that the other party was not deliberately teasing him, Mu Bai's expression gradually became serious, and then he verified it with the other party. Bai Ling, are you sure you're not kidding? Then do you think I'm the kind of person who likes to joke around? Bai Ling's reaction made Bai get the exact answer in an instant. He let go of his last concerns, and then asked about the content of the employment. Since you were willing to pay such a high price, I have no reason not to accept it. Tell me what you want me to do. It's very simple, no matter what judgment you make, after this matter is over, you must bring that fellow Barlu to me. Bai Ling's eyes began to be fierce, and from her performance, she could guess what kind of result would be if Barlu really fell into her hands. Okay. I'm willing to accept this condition. Somewhat unexpectedly, Mu Bai accepted Bai Ling's request even after knowing the result. In Mu Bai's mind, no matter what kind of abuse Bakru suffered, it was a manifestation of his guilt. In the absence of moral constraints, Mu Bai frankly assured Bai Ling that he would bring that damned Bakru to her before the early hours of this night. After the two exchanged, Bai Ling nodded gratified, and after some thought, she expressed her final opinion to Mu Bai. I believe in your strength. If you have nothing else, go back first, so as not to miss any important information. Well, you're right. Game 4 should be coming to an end, and if anything happens, I'll contact you by phone. Mu Bai left the medical center and rushed to the scene of the game with great speed. When he returned there again, the level of anxiety in the scene greatly exceeded his expectations. At this time, Crew's number 8, which was in a dilapidated suit, was struggling to breathe. A large amount of machine fluid flowed out of his arms, and his half-destroyed face was particularly oozing. On the other hand, his opponent had a relaxed expression on his face at the moment, as if the entire battle was just a play among children for him. Such a sharp contrast made Bai pay attention to the figure of another player. He began to move his pace, trying to make himself able to see clearly what that guy looked like. As the angle of view moves, the answer to the mystery begins to become clearer. And when Mu Bai finally stopped, a face that was enough to affect his emotions suddenly appeared in his eyes. Water dragon? This guy actually dares to come out. Mu Bai's face was full of dissent, and his anger was also reflected in the trembling. His aura began to be exposed, and the dissatisfaction that was difficult to suppress made the surrounding people feel it, and in this team, there would naturally be no shortage of water dragons. Naruto, isn't this Mr. Mu Bai? The water dragon, who once fled in embarrassment, actually provokes openly in the arena. His behavior also focused the eyes of the rest of the audience on Mu Bai. Under everyone's doubtful wait and see, Mu Bai directly responded to Shui Long regardless of the possibility of his identity being leaked. Why are you here? Shui Long heard Yi Le, and then said, isn't it possible? Then do you think your identity is appropriate? Haha, I didn't expect Mr. Mu Bai to care about that matter so much, so are you going to expose me? No, don't worry, before I kill you, I can keep your secrets for you. Mu Bai's answer was clearly threatening, and at the same moment, his expression changed dramatically. This guy's smile is no longer as bright and dark as before, but instead gives the illusion that he is the villain. And after listening to Mu Bai's warning, the mighty water dragon is still like me, he smiles arrogantly, expressing that he has no trouble. Mr. Mu Bai, if threats were useful, there would be no disputes in this world. Well, you're right, so I'll definitely turn what I just said into reality. The eyes of the two were on the verge of breaking out, and the onlookers who did not know the reason were full of expectations for the follow-up development. The sudden appearance of Mu Bai added a touch of mystery to the already ups and downs of the event, and as the real protagonist, at this time, Cruise number 8 has little sense of existence. You two guys, are you deliberately humiliating me? Seeing that everyone no longer put themselves in their eyes, Cruise, who was also arrogant, was unacceptable. He turned his anger on Mu Bai and Shui Long, and swore in his heart that he would defeat those two bastards with his own hands. But it is very regrettable that Shui Long did not give him that chance at all. Since the appearance of Mu Bai, Shui Long's playful heart has been completely indifferent. Since he no longer wants to continue playing, waiting for the result of Cruise number 8 will inevitably end in tragedy. To return to the water dragon in a serious state, raising a leg as a kick, his strength was so great that Cruise number 8 was instantly blasted out of the field. According to the rules of the competition, as long as the body touches the ground outside the ring, the game is lost. Therefore, as far as the situation is concerned, it is undisputed that the water dragon won the first place in this competition. On the other hand, observing Cruise number 8, he has fallen into a state of crisis at this time. If his body had not undergone special transformation, then the word death would definitely come to him. The game continues to be in full swing, but compared with the first 4 games, the next few games will be much more boring. And those players who have witnessed the event with their own eyes have also completely lost their fighting spirit. There is no shortage of such a funny scene. Even if he is qualified for the promotion, the guy with relatively mediocre strength will take the initiative to choose to abstain from, so as not to become Cruise number 8. Time passed minute by minute, and when the 20-20 format was completely over, a surprising result appeared. What should have been a hexadecimal promotion match turned into a 4-person wrestling chase. The rest of the guys, who regard themselves as mediocre, do not dare to challenge the first few. Among the remaining players now, there are only Gorokuro, Mu Bai, the Bull, and the disgusting Water Dragon. And the appearance of this situation also accelerated Bakru's plan. Stand. Bakru, who was suffocating, looked at the players under the stage with great interest. He himself did not expect that the progress of things would be so fast, but it was also a kind of luck. IELTS, go to inform the scene and let them implement according to the predetermined plan. The corners of Bakru's mouth rose, the greed in his eyes spread outwards in an uncontrollable state. Okay boss, I'll deal with it now. IELTS quickly left the office and came to the organizing committee of the competition system without stopping. As the door opened, Roger, who was standing in the middle of the hall, immediately approached IELTS with a respectful attitude. Miss IELTS, why are you here? Roger looked respectful, and the reason why he behaved so abnormally was that IELTS had saved his life. Since the last dock incident, Roger, who was defeated, has been labeled death penalty by boss. If it wasn't for IELTS winning a chance for this guy to survive at a critical moment, then Roger at this time should have become the feces of a shark. Roger, the boss has issued an instruction, asking you to inform the advanced players that they need to sign a life and death agreement. IELTS was expressionless and could not tolerate the other party's shirk. Okay, I know what to do. IELTS left the room, and Roger, who stayed behind, also called the 4 advanced players to his office through the frontline staff. In the open and bright room, Mu Bai and the others looked at each other coldly, and they maintained a hostile attitude towards each other, and the atmosphere was so oppressive that Roger couldn't bear it at all. Everyone, congratulations to you for qualifying for the promotion, but for various reasons, we have to change the rules. Roger said tremblingly. Huh? What's the rule? It was Mu Bai who answered, and his playful face made Roger extremely embarrassed. It's like this, based on the audience's reaction and the strength comparison between you, we have made a judgment. It is very difficult for us to intervene in the process of the competition. If something is not optimistic, we expect you to be responsible for yourself. Oh? You want us to sign a waiver agreement? Mu Bai continued to ask. Yes, but you can rest assured that we can still provide the guarantees that should be given. In fact, whether this exemption agreement is activated or not depends entirely on you. As soon as Roger finished speaking, Gobin Rokuro, who was leaning on the corner, immediately let out a sneer. What an autonomous authority, in fact, you just want to see our death fight, right? In the face of Gobin Rokuro's questioning, Roger was so frightened that he didn't dare to make any sound. The atmosphere began to become dignified, and the invisible pressure suppressed Roger's breathlessness. If it wasn't for Gobin Rokuro to continue speaking, that guy would probably faint. Forget it, even if you don't do this kind of thing, we can't be at peace with each other. Rokuro Wubin looked at the other three, and their eyes began to cross each other. The bull laughed out loud, and the water dragon shook his body. As for that Bai, he closed his eyes and rested, thinking about the possible results in his mind. Yesterday, it's really interesting. I'm not disgusted with this arrangement. As for what other guys think, I don't know. The bull broke the tranquility. With his unique arrogance, the atmosphere of the venue was brought to a climax.